Morning, Jake.
Good morning, Kurt, and hello to everybody out there. Welcome to another episode of Making Turbo Pit Fighter, the post-apocalyptic sci-fi comic that you can't live without. Um, we are we're still playing catch up because I just got back from Florida and North Carolina, and also Virginia, where I went to a bunch of comic stores and I raided the dollar bins. Um, so we're gonna get back set up again. I was kind of stuck in lettering hell, but Kurt, you'll be glad to hear that I finished the lettering on Turbo. Next six
What?
pages, pages 12 to 18. I just have one
Nice.
page that I didn't flatten, so we'll open that up and take a look. And I'm
Okay.
pretty sure I can send those to you. We do need to take a look at them.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I should be able to jump on to the zine pages and
Oh, good Lord. Be still my beating heart.
yeah, and we call them the zine pages, but they're going to be a couple of pages with a little bit of text and illustrations mixed in together to round
Yep.
out Do Magazine #1, which is going to have the next six pages of Turbo Pit Fighter, an 11 pager featuring the Duke by Alex Turbin, a 6 pager from Ken Landgraf featuring the Casualties, a 2 pager done by Kurt and I for Chromita, and then a bunch of those zine pages. So, doing the math there, we do have to do inside front cover, inside back cover, but some of those pages are going to be these lead-in pages where they kind of tell a story that sets up the sequence for the comics. Sets up the sequential art for the comics, and then in the back, kind of what we had last time. It's like a little bullet point list of all of our characters and how everything's changed since we last put out the Turbo Teaser #2, which is this right here. And so this is what we're talking about when we're talking about these zine pages.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to really chunk it up. Like, see this one? This one has two big blocks of text, right? And the percentage of people that are reading that, I would estimate it's probably about 18% of the people that pick up this book read
The true
these two blocks.
fans.
Right. But these on this side, you have one, two, three blocks of text. And this is really just like kind of a list. So I think the percentage of people reading this text is probably higher. I would say maybe even like 22%. And of course, um, the vast majority don't read any text in a comic book. And how do I know that? Because I don't do it. But sometimes sometimes I'm tempted in. Some of the tricks that we're going to use are um, you know making the text big, spreading the text out, using an initial cap, what they call, which is a big letter, like they did in the illuminated manuscripts of old, breaking things up with illustrations and headlines. I mean, this is kind of busy. We have to work each page and see, but um, if we do the math, how many of those zine pages are we going to end up having? Uh,
Oh, I think it's
you did it
six.
on a cocktail napkin before.
Yeah, I got it in front of me. I think it's six. It's
Well, two
definitely
of them are
four. It's definitely four for each of the storylines because it was basically a lead in to give everybody a deeper understanding of what they're heading into. And then I might be actually counting the inside and front cover to make it two more, so that would have been six.
well. The inside front cover could be the lead-in page for the casualties, and then
Yeah,
page
yeah,
one can be the first page of Ken Landgraf's sequence.
yeah.
Then after that, I think we go. We'll have like a lead-in page and go into Alex Turbin's sequence.
for the Duke.
And then after that, we could have a lead-in page to go into the turbo sequence, and then after that, a lead-in page for the Chromita sequence, and then at the end, the last two pages will be like the timeline index bullet points, and I think that would be it, if not close. But
Can
we'll start
you
laying out.
can you
Yeah.
can you send me page 3 of the casualties, since the FTP is not being friendly with that page? That's the only one.
Yeah, I could try direct mail.
Just to see what
As
happens.
as we're sitting here, let's see. My it says you tried to download it, but it cannot be displayed because
There's an error in the file.
all right, yeah, I don't get it.
Sometimes that happens with like when you have, I remember in the past, like for if, like, let's say you grabbed all 6 pages and then dumped them into the FTP, sometimes one of those pages would just end up getting an error, and they would have to, I don't know, delete and then rename it, because I think you well, I don't know. Whatever it is.
Yeah, and there's something weird that page is bigger than all the others. All the other pages are about 12 to 15 megs. But that one, for some reason, is 24 megs. So maybe we have a different resolution, or maybe there's like a layer in it or something.
Yeah, there could be something. There could be something. Yeah, a decent sized layer in there. For what reason?
All right. It says, well, let's say, try sending an email. Okay. All right.
All right. Good morning, Mello. We got some people showing up in the chats live on YouTube.
Yeah, and if folks want to check us out on YouTube Live, you could also look at our Doom Mags. Well, just go to doommags.com, and I set up a link tree. I'll show people what that looks like. If you go to doommags.com, and for some reason I put that in a search field instead of putting it here on the URL, doommags.com. I used to have it pointing to the Substack landing page, but now it comes here to this. Oh, wait, what's this? Google Drive selected server. Okay, I'm looking here, and it says this is the YouTube channel, first box. You can hit the Instagram, the Twitter, and then doommags.com actually goes to hellclaw.com now. I have a Pinterest. I can move that down. That's not as important. The Doommag characters and titles is the page on Hellclaw where we have the end of the world index picture, like that big ink thing you did. This goes to the Substack and all the live draw episodes that I do. This goes to Buy Turbo Teaser Comic, which I think goes to kurtbrugel.com. This is the Doommag Substack that goes to the stories, the story chapter pages, which are a lot more updated on hellclaw.com. This goes to the Indie Creator Exchange binge page. This goes to chronthebarbarian.com, and this goes to Doom Magazines on Twitch. Yeah, the Twitch is kind of pathetic. Every time I do Twitch, they're like nobody's watching, so it was like an abandoned experiment. I might as well get rid of, unless something comes up. I'm just going to keep that around. But yeah, if we go here to the YouTube, if we go here to YouTube and we put in turbo, you can see that we're live. And here's me talking about me, talking about me, talking about me. Hello to Mello, Gerald Grant, and then Kurt, you're in there too. Good to see you, Kurt.
Hello.
So I'm ready to launch into these flip throughs.
Can you send me that page 3?
I did, I think.
You
Let's
did?
see. It says, would you like to try to send? Oh, I guess it failed. So now I'm going to send using mail drop instead.
I thought you were going to check and see that why it was so big. You might be able to reduce the size of it.
It opened up fine. Well, on this computer, I can't open Photoshop. I can only open Preview. But it opens up fine over here.
Huh?
Yeah. So I hope everybody's looking forward to a nice tax day. We have April 15th coming up.
A nice tax day. You're funny. You're a funny kid. You're a funny kid.
Just a reminder to do your taxes. I'm calling. Oh wow! I think I see the problem. This is 400 pixels. Okay, got it. Now this is 11 by 17 at 400 DPI. Yeah, no, nothing special. Yeah, like taxes have to be in April 15th, and if you're a comic creator, you have some options about whether you want to try to make your comic business actually filed as a business. We've spoken about this a couple of different times, but if you have expenses like buying comics or buying art supplies or traveling to conventions, you could write those things off and get a slight tax benefit, but you would have to itemize as opposed to going to a standard deduction, which means it's a lot more work for your tax preparer. So I'm still just taking the standard deduction, but I keep meaning to ask my accountant if I should start itemizing and start writing off some of these expenses, because I bought a lot of comics recently, and I paid for the table for Jacksonville recently, and I'm going to rent a car to go down there, and I'm going to stay at a hotel for 2 nights. So all that stuff is write offable. But of course you have to itemize, and then the great thing about comic creators, which is not really great for comics, but it's great for taxes, is that we don't show any profit. we just show our expenses, right? And so it's pretty common to just write off a loss, because maybe in your later years you have money coming in, but maybe now the money that you have coming in doesn't equal to how much you're spending, which is typical. But you never know. There's people that actually have profit to show. It all depends. I would say the people that do it full time are probably more likely to show money coming in. But should I start my my stack? I'll only do like a small portion of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bizarre Adventures, man. That was a great series of magazines.
I don't know about that. I'm down on some of these. Here's number 28 I bought, and this is an oversized format. And this was, as we read, this was kind of like the stomping ground for Marvel ideas that were rejected in the comics. They, some of them couldn't get approved for the Comics Code Authority.
Yeah.
Some of them, they didn't have space, they didn't have a place for it. And they had a couple of these magazines just to kind of like, gather, together any kind of sword and sorcery, any kind of kung fu related stuff. Bizarre Adventures is more like superhero-ish, but also, kind of random. Let's take a look. I got a run of these. These are only $1 each. so I picked them up. Very low risk for me. By the way, Kurt, I intend to sell some or all of these comics right back to fine featherless people at the cons, including Jacksonville, and I might sell them for $1, or I might try to raise the price a little to try to raise some money for the art fund. We'll see. But even if I sell these for $1, I'll be making money because by the time I finish like bargaining and I buy so many of these, I probably pay about 60 cents a piece for these. So this has an Elektra, a Shadow Hunter by Neil Adams, Doug Mensch, Larry Hama, The Huntsman by Archie Goodwin, Michael Golden. Great names here. The Conscience of the King by Mary Jo Duffy and Wendy Peeney. And then Bucky Bizarre by Steve Skeets and Steve Smallwood. I think that's Bucky O'Hare from Pacific Comics. So there was some crossover stuff happening here. Yeah, Electros by Frank Miller. Look at this.
Oh yeah, that is one. That is a really good. That's one of my favorite Frank Millers, next to Ronin. That is so good. Done on that duo shade paper paneling board thing. Oh my god, it is so good.
So here's Frank Miller before he got into the Sin City style, fully.
Yeah, what year is the magazine, Jake? What year is the magazine?
Yeah, this is number 28, which comes out in 1981.
Oh my god! So that's like Daredevil's going on, or has already gone on for him. Has he moved away from Daredevil?
Well, it mentions here. It mentions
here.
Yeah,
yeah, because he's heading towards Dark Knight, right?
Well, it says here in the lead-in page that he was on Daredevil 168, where Elektra first appeared, and now she'll be featured in Bizarre Adventures in her first solo story. I don't know why this is selling for $1. I don't know. I mean, it's a little condition issue, but look at this beautiful Frank Miller sequence. Let's count the pages too. That's 1, 2, 3. Now this whole spread has no word balloons on it till you get down to here, so that's always fun. And then this whole page has no word balloons on it, so great storytelling here by one of the masters. I don't know how everybody feels about Frank Miller socially or politically. There's some controversy there, but as far as storytelling, one of the masters, and he redefined the idea of positive and negative interplay in comics especially when he came out with Sin City. Here we go. We got Neil Adams. I never heard of Shadow Hunter a day in my life, but this looks like the kind of stuff he was doing with continuity comics.
Yeah.
Right. Except it's black and white.
God damn it.
Yeah. Neil Adams, just a master. Not so much action. I mean, it looks I mean, even when it's talking heads, there's a lot of there's a lot of great art to see here. How he's, changing the angles and, going in and out, and zooms and pans. And look at all this. He didn't skimp on this kind of backgrounds. He was into these zipatones back in these days, and some of that was hit or miss because Ms. Mystic is a character that had Zipatone in her costume in every shot. I think it stopped. It didn't do anything for me. This is a great shot here of all the mechanical scenery and stuff. And so the Shadow Master looks like he's some kind of kung fu guy. Now we get to the Huntsman, and this is Michael Golden, 1981.
Damn.
And it doesn't look like Michael Golden that we know. Oh, yeah, here it's starting to super early Michael Golden, right? This is Michael Golden working out the kinks before he gets on Micronauts. He also did Bucky O'Hare.
Nam.
What else did he do?
Nam, Nam, like Vietnam.
Oh, he did Nam. Oh, I gotta look out for that.
Yeah.
Here's Wendy Peeney doing Triton. Triton was like a throwaway character from the Inhumans, right? And so this is so they were like, hey, Wendy Peeney, you want to do some you want to do it like a get a page rate from Marvel Comics? Sure. Okay, what character do you want to do? Triton from the Inhumans. I don't know if they had a script laying around. This is actually cool art here, and looks like Triton is getting stuck in an oil slick here in the Pacific garbage patch or something. And look, he's like debilitated. So now this is kind of like an echo conscious. Look at this. They're teaching kids in 1981 about the oil patch. And so that ends. Yeah, these are pretty healthy sequences. I think these are like 9-pagers. And that Frank Miller one was even longer. I think this was like 11 or 13 pages. Then we get here and Bucky Bizarre. It's not Bucky O'Hare. I don't even know what the character is. So this is just this is Bucky Bizarre is just kind of like a glop of garbage or something. So he's the time traveling Bucky Bizarre. For some reason, this last page printed a lot lighter. See how grayed out it is? We were just talking about this last week. Anyway, this is Bizarre Adventures number 28. I got number 27 right here with the X-Men on the cover. Talks about the secret lives of the X-Men. So here we have the Phoenix from page 5 to 24. It's Chris Claremont, John Buscema, and Klaus Janson.
That is a wicked combo. That is
big names in Marvel. And look at the
combo.
style that they're using. They're using Klaus Janson doing these gray washes. I don't really see them very much, right? And it's one of the top flight characters. We have this is some kind of dream sequence, some kind of backstory. You have a cameo by Cyclops. And Klaus Janson doing his best gray washes. Nice. Then we go to Iceman by George Perez and Alfredo Alcala.
Oh, my Lord.
Now, those guys, George Perez, of course, of Teen Titans, The Avengers, Wonder Woman. He had like these incredible runs on so many mainstream Marvel and DC. But look at this. They're doing all these ice sequences. And then you get here, and Alfredo Alcala has his inimitable style for working in black and white gray tones. And it looks like a combination of design, like alcohol markers. They had these design markers back then, and they had these other ones that I forget, those little ones with the like skinny little silver caps. They were like short, stubby markers, and they had these skinny little caps, but they were used for marker comps and stuff. And look at this double page spread down here of Iceman shooting his ice rays. You had these other superhero bad guys costumed. This is a long sequence here. So this goes from page 24 to page 42. So I don't know. This is like 15 pages or something or more. Maybe there's not too much in between. No, this might be 20 pages or something. Oh, here there is a lead-in page, right? Iceman, Bobby Drake. I don't know who did the art on this, but this is the kind of stuff like Marvel has laying around, and it looks like he's making ice statues of all of the superheroes, and he gets to this gallery of them here, and he makes ice statues of Vision, Thing, Ms. Marvel. I don't know who that is. Oh, that's Submariner, Angel, himself, Scarlet Witch, Ghost Rider. What the hell? All right. I mean, I'm just going gaga over here. I don't know if I'm gonna slow down and read the whole Iceman story when I'll get to that. So Nightcrawler is Bob Layton. Oh yeah, plot Bob Layton and Mary Jo Duffy. Script Mary Jo Duffy. Art Dave Cockrum and Ricardo Villamonte. So this is Dave Cockrum doing his comfortable, the new X-Men, with these incredible gray tone washes by Ricardo Viamonte. Do we know for sure if he's one of the Filipino artists that
I
started this?
think there's a really good chance that's a true story.
Look at this
Oh my lord.
double page spread of
Oof.
Nightcrawler getting blown apart with this evil Howard the Duck Nightcrawler here, this robotic spider here, a female Nightcrawler. Like they have all these different like iterations of weird shit happening to Nightcrawler in this Chris Claremont story. Wow. Oh no, this one is Bob Layton and Mary Jo Duffy. So they're getting a little great art here. I love these figures. Chris Claremont is to me very underrated. Um, he's not considered like one of the biggest Marvel stars, but he should be. He did the new X-Men from all the way from Giant Size X-Men 1 until John Byrne takes it over, and that had to be like what 30 or 40 issues. What a run that was. That had to be like 4 or 5 years, taking you from like 1975 to like 1980 something. Great stuff. All right, and there here you got in the back pages all this stuff that no one's ever going to read. You always got to look to see who these letters were sent by. Sometimes there's an actual name of somebody that you know, but not this time. And then here in the back, they're literally just selling back issues. Here they're selling art portfolios. Star Slayer, Mike Grell, Power and Glory, John Pound, Seven Dreams of Sinbad, Frank Scirocco, Unicorns, Leela Dowling. I never heard of some of these people. Frankenstein 3, Bernie Wrightson. 6 black and white illustrations. William Stout, Prehistoric World. Josh Kirby, Voyage of the Eye Guy. This looks like Sword and Sorcery. Conan by John Buscema, 6 black and white plates, $15. Don Mates, never heard of any of these names. Boris Vallejo, Midnight Angels, 6 pen and ink plates, signed, numbered, and limited to 1,200, $25. Some of these are these are all signed and numbered, man. Interesting. Then we have posters. Conan the Liberator by Bob Larkin, $4. Conan the Swordsman by Daryl Green. Cull by Lou Feck. Conan, Barry Windsor Smith, $4 posters. And then just back issues. And I think these back issues are being sold by this company, Pacific Comics Distributors. Yeah, there was a lot. There was something going on here. Like there was some synergy here between Pacific Comics and these black and white Marvel because
that's still 1980. That's still 1981. Like so, we still have.
But Steve Skates was a he was on number 28. He's a Pacific Comics guy, and some of the some of these are like indie guys. They're very early indie stuff. Now this one, unfortunately, I bought 2 copies of it. I bought one from one store and one from the other, not remembering
that good, huh?
Then I bought it. So this will definitely be for sale. But this one does not look as good at all. This is number 30. And so after they finished with this incredible run, I had 27, 28. You get into these nobodies. Like, here's Bill Mantlo, Mike Vosberg, and Joe Jusko doing Saturn's Secret. Who the hell is Saturn? Now, the art is good. This is nice art. It looks like heavy metal stuff. Maybe. It's a little talky, but it's like spaceships and aliens and stuff. But it goes on and on and on. And there's just no character here. They don't do a great job of setting up who's the character. it says here, oh, Paradox. So the character is Paradox. And why should we care? So, this looks like a labor of love for somebody, but it doesn't work. Um, Here you have Silhouette, another character nobody knows about. Who the hell is that? Silhouette by Peter Gillis and Gene Day. So the art again is nice. This is great Gene Day art. And he's doing a clinic here, as he usually does, on these patient, kind of like, really well designed. Look at this. Really well designed architectural shots, black and white. The people, he's always good on the people and the anatomy. But yeah, Gene Day is great. It's just like, the problem is, like, nobody would ever want to read a story about a character that no one's ever heard of named Silhouette. I don't know. Maybe I'll read this.
We all have to start somewhere.
Maybe I'll try to read it and try to get into it. But I mean, it's just a one-off. There's no beginning or end, for people to say, "Oh, I follow Silhouette." Who is that? So I think this magazine probably starts going downhill because they have these great names, right? Again, the art is by Mike Vosberg and Joe Jusko, Gene Day, John Buscema, and and yet they're doing characters no one ever heard of. Honor, who's Honor? I don't know. John Buscema's doing the art though, so yeah, look at this. He's just a guy, and he's going through all this action stuff.
Yeah, that's actually a personal favorite of mine, like from Buscema.
Honor.
There's another one too where there's this like ice queen kind of gal, but she comes from this other. Yeah, that all that stuff there is like equivalent to 70s, early 80s exploitation film stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's like almost like a movie script material, or stuff to get movie scripted, into something like yeah, that's some really good stuff. I think I have that whole run. I gotta go dig
Well,
that.
I can give you I got a spare copy of this one, but it
Really
says here's an ad for issue number 31 coming up. We take a hard look at violence. Frank Miller, John Byrne, Bill Sienkiewicz, Larry Hama, Mark Grunwald, Steve Bissett, Mark Armstrong, Tom DeFalco, Herb Trimp, and Steve Perry of how do they get the lead singer of Journey to contribute? Wow,
He had
that's
some
great.
downtime between albums and touring.
So interesting things for sale in the back from PC Distributors. Back then it was called PC Distributors, and I think they morphed into a publisher, but they're selling. Oh no, they were already putting out stuff. Here's Captain Victory by Jack Kirby. $5.50 for 6 issues, post-paid. Oh my God. Paperbacks USA, a graphic history of paperback books. X-Men Index, Daredevil Indexed, Elf Quest Trilogy. You're buying Elf Quest number 1 to 5 in lush, glorious color, $9.95. Special print hardcover with slipcase, $35. Here's the R. Crumb checklist, 192 pages. Heavy metal pencil art portfolio, limited edition of 1,000 sets. Drawings used in the production of the film as a reference for cells, $25. Heavy metal cell portfolio, 8 actual animation cells used in the film. Limited edition of 1,000 sets. Dazzling package, $70. That's worth a lot of money today, boy. You could have bought the heavy metal cells back then out of the back of Bizarre Adventures. 8 for $70. Here's Moon Knight portfolio, Bill Sienkiewicz, 11 by 14, $10. 4 exciting plates, signed and numbered, limited to 1,500. I love seeing that kind of stuff. Here's a big ad on the back for Elf Quest, the book. So this is like, and this was an ad by Bud Plant. So yeah, this was kind of a different thing from your standard comic fare from 1980, 81. And, it was right before the dawn of the indie boom. Marvel was putting stuff out. Here's Warp Graphics number 3, A Distant Soil. I bought this because, again, this is Colleen Doran, who's great. She's just a great artist, and she must have been in her early 20s back here in 1984, because I see her on Substack now kicking around. And yeah, Distant Soil was this kind of like series that had all these characters and all this good art, and really nice art, I gotta say. I read this whole thing, and I had a hard time following who everybody was. This is issue number 3, but this was put out by Warp Graphics, which stands for Wendy
Wendy
and
and
Richard Pini.
right.
Right. So they're putting out Colleen Doran. They really got behind her, and they gave her whole magazine, published her, distributed the whole thing. So this little baggie right here, I'm going to show, because if you see here, I went to a comic store in Wilmington, North Carolina, that was called Memory Lane Comics, and they have. So Wilmington, we walked all around Wilmington, because my daughter is a fan of. This is kind of embarrassing for me, but my daughter is a fan of One Tree Hill. And there's like this self-guided walking tour where you can go around and walk and see all the landmarks from One Tree Hill. And I'm happy to go around with my daughter and do that tour, that self-guided tour. We went to a bridge where everybody had graffitied up like stuff. Like, I heard her watching the show over years, and it really, really like got to her. She's a huge fan. So
What is it?
Wilmington,
What's One Tree Hill?
like Dawson's Creek and all those shows.
Oh, okay. All right,
Yeah.
sorry.
So she was watching that, show like from the age of like, I don't know, 12, all the way up till now. And she's in her early 20s now. So she's just captivated by, the whole thing. And as corny as it is, so Dad went around with her, and then she patiently let me stop into Memory Lane Comics. One thing about Wilmington, NC, there's a lot of retail space. Like, we get there, and they're in the middle of 5-day Azalea Festival, and I see a lot of young people walking around. It looks like maybe there's a couple schools around there, but there's a lot of retail space underutilized or vacant. And so I look on my map, and there's a comic store there called Memory Lane Comics. But right across the street, there's Memory Lane 2. They have 2 stores. And so to me, what that says, right? That retail space is really cheap, because we're checking into a lot of these stores, and it's like, how do they support themselves? There's a store selling stickers and knickknacks and journals and, a couple of T-shirts and some, mugs. And I'm like, store after store with this kind of thing. So how do they do it? Well, they must be really hurting for retail customers. So I go into Memory Lane Comics. It seemed like a nice shop. I just went to the back, and they were like, fill a bag for $10. Everything you could fit in the bag. And I just did a quick look through the racks, and I picked some of these up. So without spending too much time on these, a lot of these have condition problems. But here's Conan number 165. Pencils John Buscema, inks by Armando Gil, who is not one of the best inkers. He's got this kind of quick style. Reminds me a little bit of Val Myrick. He's actually kind of scratchy. I'm gonna be a little critical of him. I mean, compared to
huge fan of Armando Gil. As a matter of fact,
yeah.
He was partnered a lot with Ken Landgraf. So
Really,
yeah.
well,
You can find. I think Armando Gil like teamed up with him on work. So
yeah.
whatever Ken got, was grabbing pages from like Marvel or whatever. I think Armando would get over there. So, and sometimes he would do a substantial enough that he'd get a credit. But I've always been
Yeah.
a big like, and it was from Armando Gil did, or he had published probably about a dozen or so Conan the Barbarian pinups in the
Yeah.
magazine. I know he also inked an entire story in Savage Sword, if not reprinting the story arc that you have in your hand. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, this one's a little different actually. Like I'm looking here, it seems maybe this one, maybe this was like a hard deadline or something because there are backgrounds, but it's just not as defined as some of his other stuff. Like look here, this face that he draws. I always you always gotta look at faces, especially when they're drawing them small. This face looks like it's a Joe Kubert face, right? But this is John Buscema.
yeah, but that's John Buscema doing layouts. Like that,
Yeah, I know,
I
but
bet you $1,000,000 that those pages were all that scribbly John, and then the quote unquote inker had to completely render everything out.
well,
And
you got to
Armando
give
might have
the
just been just really at the beginning of his career, and also enamored by the fact that he was touching pages
yeah.
that had been touched by the great Big John, man. So
Well, yeah, I like his style. I mean, he makes John Buscema look like Val Myrick, which is great as far as I'm concerned. Here, so in between 160 Conan 165 and 171, he seems a lot more at home, right? And there's a lot more kind of like
yeah, yeah, you're right on
style
that. Yeah,
to this and detail, like especially like this page, and I
yeah.
don't know, maybe there's different maybe there's like
Read down,
helpers
read
or
the
maybe he had
credits.
more
What are the
time.
credits on that one? That issue. What are the credits?
It's Bushima and Gill.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wow. And then
I got
the other one is just Bashima and Gill.
yeah, both of these
Wow,
are Bushima and Gill.
wow.
This one I got 173. So this is just 2 issues later. Conan the Barbarian. It's John Bushima and Bob Camp. So, oh, these colors. Yeah, this is faded out. These are right from the beginning. I don't like these colors. Why are they like this? Greens and purples. Look, there's this female character who keeps appearing. Look at her. A woman, a girl, but old enough. Oh boy. Um, so she takes her. I mean, this could very easily be Red Sonja, but
No,
she's
it's
not
an
right here.
arc. It's a very long-standing arc that she's kind of like bewitched. She's like not even really like it's a really the first time I remember getting those issues I was completely thrown off because I did think she was um, Red
Red.
Sodia, and it was very 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 confusing. And then over the years, rereading the issues as I have, it's this really wild where it ends up like in this kingdom of this black sorcerer, and it's just it's psychotic.
You got
Like
her
it
name.
gets really psychotic, but really good shit though. I mean, you just
Well,
can't.
look at Bob Camp's inks.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
I'm not gonna
throwing.
I'm not gonna say much here, but Bob Camp, who's that? Was he just like was this like an audition or was this like a fill-in guy? The character's name is Tetra. I don't know if you're familiar, but he's Conan is calling her Tetra, and I love when there's like these females, barbarian ladies that go along with the guys. As you all know, I'm a big fan of Red Sonja, and then I bought some of these other female barbarian comics that they came out. Those two on the boat that are now in indie comics. Yeah, that was whoosh. Bob Camp. I'm on that's a question mark for me. Do I have any more Conans here? Yeah, we're gonna go back before Bushima and Gill to Conan 151 and 152. And
Yeah,
we see John Bushima and Ernie Chan.
ooh
So
yeah,
this
ooh
is a
yeah.
treat right here. Ernie Chan, one
Oh
of the
yeah.
great Filipino inkers and artists. It's great when he does his own stuff. Sometimes he was credited as Ernie Chua, right? I don't know why that happened, but look at this. They're doing these like pink panels. Why are they doing that? It's like must be a flashback. And of course, Marvel, you have to put up with the damn ads. But this is just great stuff. I'm not going to linger too long. I would love to. Here's a Conan cover. This is the very next issue, 152, and it's not credited, but it looks like,
That's Michael Golden.
yeah, it looks like Michael Golden.
It is.
So he's doing Conan covers. All right, and the insides are again John Buscema and Ernie Chan. Here they're fighting this like sorcerer monkey guy, whatever. He's a demon monkey or something. And good stuff. I mean, if you're making sword and sorcery comics, you could just flip these open, just flip a couple of pages, and just be so inspired. You can see, how the master laid it out, John Buscema. And to me, it's really all about the storytelling because, let's face it, Conan is very repetitive. So how do you make it interesting? Well, that's the key, right? Here we have Omega the Unknown, number 3, 25 cents. It's not in that bad shape, so that means Omega is a real loser of a title. Written by Steve Gerber and Mary Screens, illustrated by Jim Mooney. Jim Mooney was kind of like the backup of, when John Romita wasn't around. And, he's perfectly fine. But, he's kind of like always put in the B list or the C list in Marvel. He did Spider-Man. He did Spider-Man for a while. And I'm reading this Omega comic, and I love Steve Gerber as a writer, but you really got to slow down and get into this because look at this. This is just like talking head for 2 pages. Somebody's in the hospital. I guess Omega number 2 was really exciting, but he's starting out here on a real lull. Then we get here to the action, and we see Omega is going up against Electro, right? And here we see there's what is this? Look at this. There's a high school, and kids are throwing stuff at the teacher, and then the teacher smacks the kid. What the hell is that? I think Steve Gerber's working out some issues here. Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on Omega number 3, but here we finally get to some action. I don't know what his power was. I don't know his deal. He was kind of like a boring superhero. The Gil Kane cover makes it look cool, but Omega was this character that they used, and they sent a cease and desist letter to Tim Vigil because they were making an Omega character of their own that they had to change the name to Omen. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, because we had the Omen, and we showed that they printed the cease and desist letter.
That's so cool.
But yeah, I don't know the whole story behind Steve Gerber. I think that was a Steve Gerber thing. They gave him his own title. Was it creator owned? Steve Gerber, was this before Howard the Duck? Still only 25%, so 25 cents. So I think this is after Howard the Duck, right? Howard the Duck was all 25-cent comics, right? I don't know. Let's see. Here's another Conan. Oh, here's a couple more Conan. Yeah, I bought a run of Conan. Hope I didn't buy the same one twice. So here is 125 when comics were only 50 cents. So this goes back to 1981. Is that a 91 or 81? It's all blobbed out. I'm going to assume this is, 81. So this is art, John Buscema and Bob McLeod, or however you pronounce it. The inker. He's a name that's been around. Do we know how many actual issues of Conan John Buscema and penciled? It's got to be some inordinate amount.
Yeah, it's pretty much the lion's share.
Yeah.
There's
Well, no, it starts with Barry Windsor Smith, And then that
It
brings you
starts
to
with
the
him.
20s, issue 20s, right?
25 is when Buscema starts, but Buscema is not even Buscema yet. I mean, he's still aping uh, Kirby.
Romita?
You know,
Oh,
he's
Kirby.
still
Yeah.
he's still in that big blocky kind of mode, which is it's good shit. But and then it's the Silver Surfer issue or Thor issue where he just
He did
like
a
lets
lot
loose.
besides. Buscema does Avengers. He does everything. I'm sure he's
Yeah,
worked on every single title.
yeah. And then
Um,
he gets that stride.
so yeah, so did he go all the way from issue 25 to 125? Here he
I
is,
mean,
125.
like a dominance of it. I mean, it was always they never. I've heard he always complained that he could not pick every month his books because it was just the way the lineup would go and people changing books and stuff, and they needed him to
He's a
carry
workman.
the weight.
Yeah,
And
he's a workhorse.
Conan wasn't a top notch book like Avengers, Thor, Silver Surfer. You know what I mean? Like and he had, and that and they depended on Buscema to do that. And he says it was just torturous because he hated drawing superheroes, same as me.
Oh, really?
And he was in love with Conan the Barbarian as a comic book and the stories and the characters and how he could just really like let go and be in.
Yeah.
And that's what gets projected. I mean, definitely for me, it's what I received with somebody who just loved what he was doing. So,
Well, here's a John Buscema cover with Terry Austin inks in 1981. And the inside, I mean, I see these colors by George Rousseau. They really give short shrift here. Look at this whole sequence where they have these pink clouds, right? Everything is like bathed in these pink clouds. So the inker just does these lines, the black and white lines, and then the colorist is taking some kind of gray tone marker and just making these splotches that are just not very artistic. So the colorist is actually drawing here, and this was quick deadline turnaround stuff, but it doesn't really, I mean, it serves the purpose of getting, the comic out by the deadline. But look at these colors, this is just, bleh. So this is Conan 125. Now we're gonna skip forward to 164, and I think we were right in the middle of the 160s before. We did one. No, we had 165. So that was Armando Gil, and this is Armando Gil cover. And look at this when he does his own pencils and colors. A much different look. It kind of looks like a John Bolton look, right?
love it.
But look at how short the sword is. What's up with that? And it looks like he's squaring off with this priestess or something. Yeah, I wonder did Conan ever have a short stubby sword?
Well, I mean, if he
And
had
then
to
inside,
use what was ever around, if he didn't have his quote unquote, he didn't have a name brand sword.
well,
He
yeah,
just
but
had
it's
a
sort of
sword.
long. Yeah, it just looks like it's real short. Like I would have drawn, if that was me, I would have drawn it that going past the lady, like a long sword. Inside, we see John Buscema got the month off.
Got the month off.
Yeah, this whole thing looks like, what do they call it when there's like a fill-in comic? Writer Larry Yakata, artist Gary Quapise, letterer Janice Chang, George Russo color, editor Larry Hama, Jim Shooter. So this is not, I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's not an artist I've ever heard of. So he got a Conan audition as a fill-in book. It's really nice, actually. Who's Gary Quapise?
Yep.
Look at all that. Look at that. It's a little bit of cheesecake. You got these goddesses coming down from heavens in string bikinis, and they're fighting it out.
It
This
was
guy looks
kind
like
of my memory of it was he was he was comparable to like George Perez, you know, like he was really filling the panels and compressing the action inside each of those panels. So it wasn't these like looser panels of just like close up of faces and you know hands with a sword smashing and crush and splat. You know, it was really putting in a ton of work. You know, very
um
appreciated.
Gary Quapise.
Yeah.
Heard of him? All right.
Oh
Did
yeah.
maybe
Oh yeah. Yeah, I actually talked to him back in the day on a forum in on Facebook. Was just you know getting its like druthers out there and stuff. So yeah, he was somewhere, and I like friended him, and then he friended me back, and then I just like sent him a nice message saying you know your book, you know your stories carried me through you know a couple of years of you know such and such. He was like, thanks, man, blah 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 blah. You know, just kind of kick back and forth and stuff.
that's a great artist, and he
Yeah,
does these.
he does Western stuff. The
Oh,
last thing
I'm
he
sorry.
did was a Western graphic novel, and
Well,
yeah, I didn't
I
even
got
begin
him.
it.
I got him right here. By the way, I'm saying his name wrong. That's not an E. Gary Quapis. It's a Z. It's Gary Quapiz. Quapiz. So it says here he worked on he drew for the Comics Journal between 79 and 82. He was on DC's New Talent Showcase in 84. In the 80s, he worked on Conan as well as Moon Knight, Kazar, and The Punisher. He also drew New America and Airboy for Eclipse and was presented by in Anything Goes and Prime Cuts by Fantagraphics. So it seems like he was a nibbler, right? It seems like he came in and he had a nice little run on a couple of Marvel titles, but it didn't really settle in for some reason to work, you know, as a mainstay in the bullpen. And you know, that's a great career. Don't get me wrong, but you
I'd
know,
have taken it.
well, so here we have Korak, Son of Tarzan, in two different publishers. I bought this. You know, sometimes you know, you're looking through these dollar boxes for hours, and you just find something like this. I buy like pretty much all 20-cent comics, and I even bought like a 20-cent Superman, if you can believe it. But only because the art looks really. I thought this was Neil Adams at first, but it's not. So let's compare Korak, Son of Tarzan. This is a Joe Kubert, obviously, cover. And this is 1973 slash 74. This is bi-monthly, and the art is by Murphy Anderson. Edgar Rice Burroughs had Korak Adventures as the son of Tarzan, and I get was Jane his mom? This is nice art. It kind of reminds me of Carmine Infantino a little bit. But you know, very serviceable here. Of course, you're getting all the ads, but yeah, really nice artist, and they draw him a little differently from Tarzan. You get here to Tarzan's Encyclopedia, and then there's a backup story by a young M.W. Kaluta, Carson of Venus.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. That's an awesome run right there. I think it just recently got collected last year. Really freaking good stuff.
So this is early Mike Kaluta, 1973, 74.
Mm.
And this book is like all different Edgar Rice Burroughs characters. Um, and yeah, it's always good to see Mike Kaluta. I mean, you know, folks, man, we have to learn from these guys. Like, you know, what are they doing on the page here? Like, you know, what are these sequences? Like, you know, how do they use open, you know, space, you know, for effect, like all kinds of stuff like that. So now we're going to a 15-cent gold key, and this is Korak, Son of Tarzan, and this is 1971. So this is a little before, and here you can see the art style. It's a little more like open and airy and primitive, I would say. You know, this is your and oh god, somebody put a staple in here. I'm afraid to take it out. Um, so yeah, this is just, I guess storytelling. They're drawing Korak just like Tarzan here, except he's got this kind of neat like haircut. You would think that his hair would be like a little ruffled. This artist is not drawing lions very well. But yeah, not a great artist. So let's call out if they name the artist. They don't even name the artist. How's that? So they name the artist at some point here. We have to give him the blame. No, did Gold Key just have like house artists? 1971.
That's a good question. That's
Here it's signed here in the very last panel. It's signed here, Dan Spiegel. So this was, it's not sucky art. The bodies look realistic, and the anatomy looks good. The lion doesn't look that good, but these guys were just cranking out pages for Gold Key back in the day. I don't think in 1971 comics were still not considered like the art form that it would be throughout the 70s when Marvel grew to the heights. This I bought, I don't know why, it was 20 cents. Look, it's mutilated. But you're just filling a bag for $10. This is art Kurt Swan and Murphy Anderson, who we just spoke about. I always hated Superman. I think he's got too many powers and it's corny. But here, this is what Superman comics look like, because we never really look at this. These pages are completely cut up and everything. I'm just gonna toss this in the garbage, honestly. I'm not gonna pass this on. But is there a backup story here with Green Lantern? There is. Look. So you get to the back and it says story by Elliot Maggin from an idea by Neil Adams. But lest you think the art is going to be Neil Adams, he did some Green Lantern at some point, but this ain't it. The art is Dick Giordano and Dick Dillon. So a couple of dicks here. And I think I'm just going to throw this out. I'm not going to waste somebody else's time. Oh, you know what? I'll bring it to school. That's what okay. Spanning the eras here, we have Harris Comics number 7, Vampirella Strikes. Silver anniversary, 25 years. A painted cover by somebody named Mac. But look who appears here. Rudy Nebres on the insides. I can't wait to see this. Oh boy. All right. Oh, there's a little new. Oh, that's fine. So, pencils and ink. Rudy Nebres.
That's Vampirella, you said?
And I'm going to show something here. So they have this like nude figure here. She's got blood in her hands and she's in the sink. Just look at Rudy Nebres. The way like his flowing drapery is like killer. And they drew this woman here, but they erased the line that defines her crack. So I guess it's not like that adult. And here her boobs are like not showing any, it's just like side boob. But this is great art. Look at this, Rudy Nebres. So he's drawing this busy city scene with Vampirella, and now we're getting some different angles. We got the worm's eye shot, then we have the up the face shot. Next thing you know, Vampirella's getting shot at, and she says, "Satyr and Circe." So now this is Rudy Nebres giving us some action sequences. Beautiful. We got this page here. I'm a big fan of Rudy Nebres. I mean, he's been around since the 70s. So this comic, Vampirella Strikes, came out in 1996. And, you figure he was 20 to 30 years into his career already. A lot of action here. This is cool. And then we get to a little bit of story. Look at all the detail on the page, right? This is Rudy Nebres.
Yeah, and then they fuck it all up with that digital coloring. It's all
good point. The 1995 digital color was coming in and ruining everything. But you can't expect them to run separations. Like at that point, it's like so expensive, like manpower wise.
Yeah, but I mean, like it,
I
just
mean,
the fact that you would come across these pages and you're completely ignoring the mastering of the art form. It's just pen and ink and drawing goes, and you've got to basically quote unquote enhance it, but the enhancement is just literally, it's just like if you wrote like a really nice pop song, like you just like, this is a really good pop song, and then somebody just put
string. No, you're talking about
right over the top of it.
Phil Spector. He was he was accused of overproduction and
Yeah,
putting in like strings and horns when they were completely unnecessary.
yeah,
He did it to the Beatles.
yeah.
I gotta point out, like this, I'm very disappointed when I buy a lot of Vampirella comics for the interiors, but you got to see how much value is on the page here from Rudy Nebres. Like, look at this shot. You get to this part in the story, like here, somebody is like in an insane asylum, and you really get like some sense of that. Then look at this. You get to this like crime scene, and he's drawing. This must have taken a half a day to do
color
this
or draw.
Well, I'm gonna remind you, Kurt, that in 1995, all anybody was talking about was the new image style of coloring comics.
Not me.
And
I was talking about, because watercoloring, there's still people that were doing watercoloring of comics, and
that's right, but it costs $100 for
stuff. So they were being colored by hand, and then that just finally all went away because quote unquote it was cheaper, and that's what the kids wanted because of Image.
Well, Image had all these titles coming out with all this glossy, colored lighting everywhere, and everybody was fascinated by it. And I interned for Valiant Comics, who didn't believe in that, and Valiant Comics hand painted every page with watercolors and gouache and all that.
Bless them.
And my job was to go on the Long Island Railroad every Wednesday and go to this production house in Long Island where they would have all these pages scanned on a drum scanner for $100 a scan.
Yep.
And that was a lot of money because you already paid an artist and a colorist to hand color. So it's expensive as opposed to Photoshop, where you could probably just pay, somebody like, I don't know if the colorists got 100 a page back in those days, but there's a lot on the page. And I think the problem is that they were probably scanning the black holding, line at 300, instead of 400. It wasn't holding, it was turning thin lines into thick lines, and you lose a lot in translation, especially if you look at it under a magnifying glass or a loop. But yeah, I'm glad I bought this Rudy Nebres. Let's see what's in the back.
If I own those pages, I would definitely turn around and just run them as a black and white, trade paperback. Just give some
great one. Great,
like that.
Give them back to Rudy. Give them back to Rudy and do a gray wash, for God's sake, or pencil or charcoal.
I don't know if Rudy's around anymore.
Well, the stuff that I don't mean, I mean hypothetically, but the stuff that they used to do in the black and white mags, Rudy Nebres was a master of all that. If you flip the comic over, you have another cover here.
Dude, he's still around. Dude, the man's still around.
Oh yeah, Rudy.
89 years old, brother. Yeah, let's get those pages to him. Come on, let's get some crowdfunding going, people.
Can we hire him? God bless him. So
God damn, yeah.
If you flip this over, you get a story by Bill Dubé and Jose Gonzalez, Call Me Panther. And so this is 1, 2, 3. This is like a shorter comic. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pager that is the flip for this. But I was surprised. Now I'm going to be looking at the Harris Vampirellas. I know Vampirella's coming out now with who is it? Boom Studios or Dynamite Studios or something. All right, we're gonna go. back to Conan for issue 192. So this is going to be 1987. Awful colors. Ugh, what this page just opening. Look at it. Look at this cool cover, and then I open this up, and this page just hits me in the face like an egg. Look at all this yellow. Blech. So the art is well, they don't say. Well, so James Owlsley was the writer, and so the artist is Val Semeiks, Semeiks, with finishes by Jeff Isherwood, which could be inks, which probably means inks. Janice Chang letters. So look at the and this George Rousseau. Come on, man, he's not my favorite colorist. Look at all this yellow. Blah. What are we looking at here? Look at this spread. I mean, it's brighter in real life than it is on the screen. So Val Semeiks is pretty good. He looks like he's aping Barry Windsor Smith a little bit, maybe a little Val Myrick. The storytelling is great. The art is great. The inks are okay, a little scratchy, but that's a style. But then the colors, what is the colorist doing? He's like, I'm going to bring in a series of reds and pinks and oranges and purples. Why? Now it looks like Conan goes underground and he's meeting all these space aliens, and they capture him. So that's kind of cornball, but you need some different stories. And then he encounters this big wolf, and the wolf, they don't really capture the majesty of the wolf as they do on the cover here, but the wolf leaps and Conan dispatches him. Then all of a sudden he's fighting, and this guy turns into a girl, Tetra, and he's hallucinating. And then it turns out to be the space alien, and that's the real reality of it. Now, Conan is going through his paces here. This is an awful panel here. If you're listening at home, never combine orange and pink. Never, just don't do it. Oh my God. And then this whole page is a cop out. These explosion pages, I know you're trying to get the majesty of the impact and everything, but this does not do that with the orange and
like
the pink.
3:30, 3:45 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Deadline.
Just turn it in.
The FedEx guy is going to be on your doorstep in about 25 minutes.
And then you know what they're going to do? They're going to say, "Don't worry, we'll hide it behind, between two big ads. We'll put an ad before."
Don't worry about it. We'll hide it.
Oh gosh. All right. Next, the Devourer of Souls strikes. So another day at the office. But isn't it interesting to Conan's and to like kind of critique the colorist, the inker, the artist. All right. I just grabbed this. A 20-cent Charlton. The Millionaire Kid. This is the Partridge Family, the grooviest. So this must be this is 1973. And look at this. You can order for only $1 500 David Cassidy Super Love stickers for your letters, lockers, mirrors, and walls. Put a different photo of David everywhere. 4 different kinds. Color, fun. So this is the great days of mail order, and you could send $1 cash to Derby, Connecticut, Charlton Building. I didn't know that Charlton was in Derby, Connecticut. Also, look at this. This looks like some kind of mistake, some kind of production mistake. They have all of these kind of like digital numbers repeated on the top of an ad. Why would that be there? So the Partridge Family in House of Shadows, credited to Don Sherwood. I don't know if he wrote and drew, but look at that. Great Susan Day photo referencing. You got Florence Henderson. No, what's her name? Shirley Jones. Danny Bonaducci, right? He's looking right at the TV as he's drawing. This is before they had pause, 1973. So he probably had to take some Polaroids or get some stills. But this is great for Partridge fans. Come on. Doesn't get better than this. Look. And then here, more pictures and posters of David Cassidy, 1973. We're selling like crazy. So now we're going to get to the back and we're going to see what happens when the artist gets bored. He's going to do something like this. Don't tell me he didn't step out on the balcony and burn giant J. Look at this. What is that? It's like a vase. What is it? Oh, this is a different artist. This is F. Bravo, but somebody contributed this, and these color separations all this film had to be cut in order to do this. Very intricate film had to be cut. You can see a mistake right here. People don't realize when they look at an old comic how much work went into the coloring. We talk about it all the time. Look at this. Look at this.
Somebody
What happened? Look, this is a major production error.
Yeah, the plate didn't run the color, the pass.
Well, yeah, it's a little blobby here. This looks like a blob of ink picked up or something.
Yeah.
But this could be. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the printer's fault. It could be that the separation just went out bad and they were approved bad. And this is all really clearly photo referenced here. So the artist, they just told the artist, draw a couple, trace some photos, and we're going to put this out as a comic. And then they build a story about it. But this was quite an era. For anybody that's young, don't understand what's going on here. The Partridge Family was like a #1 TV show. David Cassidy, Susan Day. They were selling so much merch. Look, they're repeating the exact same ad as they had before, which means they're running out of paper and they're running out of time. They're running out of pages. Here you can get the David Lovers Magazine Spectacular from Tiger Beat. And you got more, printing problems here. 4 giant posters for the price of one. $2 for 4 posters of David Cassidy. Oh my gosh! And then here, Partridge Family Fan Club, 1972 kit. You get a record, a poster, autographed wallet-sized portraits of every cast member. Of course, they don't tell you that the autograph is printed. A new membership card, Partridge stickers, which they have hundreds lying around, and a huge living, kissable, all-color poster of David Cassidy. Can you believe it, man? I'm just swooning. Now, this is in pretty good condition. I could probably sell this for more especially if I find a Partridge mark. I don't know why I got this. I might regret this. Classics Illustrated Junior, number 553, 25 cents, King Thrush Beard. It looks like a guy putting on or taking off an eye patch. This is 1968 with a connect the dots that a kid did for me in ballpoint pen. Thank you, kid. He outlined a clown. But here we're seeing these very, very rudimentary, cartoony comics. I never heard of King Thrushbeard. Maybe this is like the Brothers Grimm or something. 4 panels to a page, pretty strict. Yeah, but I'll probably read through. I'll probably just stick this in my classroom for some kid to discover. And maybe if they, get to this far in the story, they'll start to sympathize with this poor, waif character. And then somehow King Thrushbeard turns into a handsome blonde prince. And then there's a wedding. This might have been Aesop's Fables. I don't know if this was worth it or not for $1, but these are the questions. All right. We're getting down to the short strokes. Master Kung Fu. I probably have this already, but I bought it anyway. This is Paul Galassi at his height with inks by Jack Abel. Here, everyone can see what a beautiful montage looks like. These inset panels. You have the character, the bad guys, You have like a composition. You have all this writing. You know, Doug mentioned you did a lot of writing, so you have to fit in the text somewhere. You know, great. And then you're off and running with this great Paul Galassi art. I'm definitely a Paul Galassi fan. I'm in his corner. Colors, Petra G. She didn't even give her last name. Yeah, I definitely have this one already. Sheila Wu. I might have even flipped through it. But look in the back. This is interesting. I don't have this on the other one. There's a hard card tip in of these jewelry you could buy. Diamond set by trios for bride and groom. Love stones. Look, $110, $120. You can buy a ring through a
You know why
conduit.
those are in there?
Why?
Military.
Good point.
It was
Good point.
military service, so they would Charlton, all the Charlton, DC, they all had contracts with military bases, and so they could send paid for by the government to send these comic books ever since World War II. To the bases, and then those when you see those rings, especially the engagement rings, and jewelry, that was basically advertising directly to servicemen that didn't want to lose their sweetie pie, and so
Great
let me get a
point.
ring next time I get furloughed or
Great
whatever.
point. Yeah,
Yep.
look, you get up to $380. Center diamond with 4 matching diamonds. So I wonder, Kurt, now that you're saying that, if this round 25-cent thing here was an indication that this was some special military edition that was going overseas.
Yeah,
Or maybe they're going
some of
to.
those ads will even say like send your, for a discount of X amounts, your military number or
Right
something,
here.
something like that.
Look, right here. Mark
Yeah,
Jewelers, 25 years service to the military.
there you
Los
go.
Angeles.
Yep.
Very interesting. You might want to isolate that clip, bro.
Okay.
So here we see Paul Galassi at the top of his game. There's just so much action packed on these pages, and this is Master Kung Fu is my number one favorite comic. If I was to be asked, the run that they had with Doug Mensch and Paul Galassi really is some of the best reading and some of the best ogling at art. Maybe it was the age I was or whatever, but it just holds up to me. Nowadays. And yeah, I'm gonna be on the lookout for these round 25-cent circles, and I wonder if this is a clue that's a military edition. I'm not gonna lie. Also, the fact that they tipped in these like 2 pages of thick cardboard here, right in the center spine, does help the condition because it's less likely to bend, it's less
Yeah.
likely to crack, less
Yeah.
less likely to have spine damage. Even if you take it out. Here I got a Jughead number 168. I was buying some of these older Archies. They had plenty of Archies and Richie Rich and Casper, which I didn't buy. But when they were older, I picked them up for $1. I stick them in my classroom, but I want my students to see like yellow pages and see how like old things are. And this was 1970, so kind of old. I'm not gonna dwell on that. And then the last one for today. I mean, trust me, I have maybe 6 times this volume of comics that I bought. But the last one for today. So I bought Warlock number 5, featuring Spider-Man and featuring this guy. I forget his name. I think it was like Samson or something. Maybe we'll come across it. But this to me is the era of Marvel which I didn't like, and Warlock might have been a bright spot in that, because the art is, yes, indeed, Jim Starlin interiors. So Starlin, Lialoa, Tom Archesky on letters, Marv Wolfman editing, Archie Goodwin is the whatever. Oh, maybe this is a reprint actually, because look, it says represented by Craig Anderson, John Lewandowski, and Tom DeFalco. Yeah, so I think this is reprinting an old Warlock, maybe from the 70s. in 1980, no, 1992. Yep, it says copyright 1976. It was republished in 1983 and 1992. So they were just putting these Jim Starlin Warlocks out again and again and recoloring them. And you can tell there's a way to tell that it's a second generation. It's just not as sharp, or something. The black line seems like maybe it lost a little crispness, but this was like, Jim Starlin at his most psychedelic, and he has Adam Warlock going through all this kind of cosmic stuff and turning into things, right? And it just kind of introduces Adam Warlock. Next thing you know, we're on to another story already. And I don't know what this inside front cover is, or where the hell this comes from, but this is Gamora, who appears prominently in the Avengers movies nowadays. And this guy writing up on her, I forget his name, but he's in some of those magazines. All right, so here we're reprinting. I think I remember this from Marvel Team Up. Bill Mantlo, John Byrne, Dave Hunt, inker. There's that name again. And I think this is Spider-Man and Warlock in Marvel Team Up. But it doesn't say originally presented in blah, blah, blah. And you can see here the indicia is missing because this is like lower on the page. But yeah, here's John Byrne doing Warlock. So this is all recolored and on slightly better paper than it originally appeared. And this bad guy, what's his name? Men call me the Stranger. Okay, fine. John Byrne had a great run on Marvel Team Up, and this was Spidey and whoever. It was like Iron Fist, Spidey and Power Man, Spidey and Warlock, Spidey and the Invisible Girl, Spidey and whoever. And I remember when John Byrne did the pencils, they had me. There was good stories and good superhero fare. I was probably like 13 years old, so don't judge me. But and here we get another. Oh, so this is like Warlock appearing in an Avengers story with Captain Marvel, and this was. It doesn't say Starlin on it, but I think this is Starlin. Oh yeah. So here's how they do the credits: finishing Joe Rubenstein, lettering Tom, coloring Petra G, editing Archie Goodby, other manual labor Jim Starlin. They always had to have these interesting ways of presenting the credits. So this is really shadowy, and I don't know if you can tell, but they didn't use a very thick, a very rich black. So you can see how the black like thins out here, and you see these bad angles where the printing is kind of like subpar. The recoloring is ugly here. I don't know if the original coloring was any better, but this is ugly color. Look at this ugly coloring. Blah. You're killing me. Can you believe this? Look, this is the episode where we're calling out cop out for explosion panels.
Yeah, but they still got full page rate, I bet.
Well, there's white to 10% yellow to like 70% yellow, and then they put in like 20% magenta, so now it becomes like an orange, and then there's 40% magenta. So the guy just cut these films in this like egg shape. Ugh, awful. And there's so many different ways to do coloring. This was not a good way. And then all this explanation about the origins of the cosmic cube and Thanos, which might be a big deal nowadays because the movie ended up being so much bigger than anybody ever thought Thanos could be. Jim Starlin did go into a negotiation and reach the settlement for his part in creating Thanos. He hadn't created Warlock, but he created Thanos. Or maybe he was involved in the costume design of Warlock. But I think they originally called him, and then they changed the name to Warlock during the Fantastic Four years. And then Jim Starlin comes along. kind of took ownership. And then so this Warlock number 5, they were just compiling all of the Warlock stories of old, and probably they might have had the Jack Kirby stuff in issue number 1, 2, 3, 4. Who knows? This is a brand new cover, and I can't figure out who did the cover. I'm not sure if this is Starlin or whatever, but yeah, that is my report. So I'm just going to do a very quick review of all of the things we saw today. We saw this. We saw 2 of these. We saw this. 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 Some great stuff. Some not so great stuff. You got to take the good with the bad when you're buying dollar comics, but it's well worth it. I'm going to sell these for at least $1. And, again, before I walk out of there with 50, 60 comics, I asked the guy, can you do a little better? They even have a sign up that says if you buy 50, you get it for 30 or whatever. So, these are discounted even beyond $1. But that's what I'm going to show for today. And now maybe we'll get to work. What do you think?
Yay!
Yay. So you are inking Turbo Pit Fighter number 1, and it looks like you're on the last pages there of doing inks and finishing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the page number?
This page right here is 25.
25. So you still got 3 more pages to go.
Yeah, but I'm not working consecutively. I'll be coming back. Next week, I'm going to be, just to tease people, I'm going to be using a spray can, black and white, maybe even gray, and then gouache, some gray gouache, white gouache. So that'll put me pretty much over the hill in the end of that. And the next week, I will literally be 95% good on these pages. So pretty excited about that.
This is a something I'm eBaying. This is a flyer for my favorite band, the Muffs. I just sold it on eBay. $12. I don't know what I paid for it, but these are rare punk rock flyers, apparently. Picture of Sid Vicious. The Simple Tones is a name I've heard before, but it must have been a cool show. First thing I got to do is fix the date and time when I open this, because this white laptop has no battery. And it says it puts you to January 1st, 2001. Of all the default times, today is actually April 12th of 2026. How time flies.
When you're making comics.
Yeah. Can you believe it? I'm going to have to type it 2026. And you also have to put the time. See any good movies? I did see that movie called with what's his name, Pratt. It's called Mercy, and the guy's you might have seen the preview. The guy's strapped into a chair, and this new AI program is the new court system in the future, and he's got to prove his innocence within an hour and a half or something.
Never heard of it.
No. Well, it's kind of a, I don't know. I don't want to say blockbuster, but it's a big name actor, Chris Pratt. He is also known for being Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy and many other action movies. This is the time is now 11:41 a.m. So it was it was a very interesting treatment of how the world is going to be looking at AI in the future for for adjudicating cases, like in court. And you can really argue that if the program is set up right, that it could be fairer, to use a robot than a human to judge guilt or innocence in the future, right?
So on YouTube, one of the popular things coming out right now where people are doing either a channel or a collaboration of video that they're collecting out of courtrooms where judges are reprimanding attorneys for using ChatGPT. And it's, I'll tell you, just to watch an attorney stand there in front of a judge, and the judge is like, yeah, that case never happened. It doesn't exist in the docket. The attorney's like, like not admitted, like, I don't know if I completely agree with you, Your Honor. You know what I mean? Like, but they never, like, even like there's one video where they just never admit they use I'm gonna have to go back to my my whatever the assistant is, for attorneys and stuff like that. But it's like we are not close to anything. We're just not close to anything. Here's another part. Let me just segue us. Did you watch the Artemis, do its thing, launch, go around the moon, wash your hair? They had back up in the latrine, and then the touchdown. Did you watch any of that stuff?
I didn't watch the touchdown. I saw some of the takeoff, and I saw some of the photos.
Like nothing has changed since 1969 to 72 and 3. You know what I mean? Like that's the same thing we've been doing. Like there was nothing advancing about it. Like I watched it literally just to be like, oh shit, that's fucking cool. No, it was just repeat, rinse, wash, repeat. It was like, I mean, it's super fascinating. I was on a walk with some friends, and you could still see the moon, because it was early in the morning, and I just stopped and I was like, guys, there are 4 human beings going around the moon right now. That shit's cool, and the photographs coming back. But once again, like, the technology is just not being integrated into anything of like expansiveness or something to that extent. But like, if people want to, I don't even know how it can. Well, I know why my channel would show off stuff like that. But look up like attorneys being berated by judges for using ChatGPT or something like that, and you'll come across these like they're very quick videos.
Yeah, I mean that came up in a pretty high profile case here in New York because former Governor Andrew Cuomo was accused of all this misconduct, and he was being handsy with some females and stuff, and all those accusations came out, and he was accused of filing bogus AI stuff as well. And that's and these people aren't even embarrassed. They should be disbarred. I think
they just, like I said, like they're just like, thank you for bringing that to my attention, Your Honor. But this is paperwork that has been submitted into the court system, which is just completely fallible. Like it's like it's so elementary and like sad, and in calibration for everybody freaking out about what?
Sometimes I encounter that myself, and it's tough when you're using AI for what it's actually good for, is doing research for things that are real, to not know 100% for sure that everything they're saying is for real.
You have to check it. You have to, when you write a paper, half if not 2/3 of your time writing a PhD paper or a doctorate is checking your facts, because when you go before the people that you've written this for, and so in order for them to say, yeah, you'll make a good doctor, PhD, attorney kind of thing, they all they do is sift through and make sure that everything you do. So having ChatGPT lay out your dissertation is great. Maybe you saved
Yeah, can
three
you double space
afternoons,
it for me? Right.
huh?
Right. That's
But
what it's good for. Can you double space it, please?
yeah, you know what I mean. Like and that might actually give you a varied, a nuanced point of view in your approach to writing said paper, which might just like cross, like okay. But from then on out, when you're writing it, you've got to prove that this shit is legit. Like that, you're not going to get around
Well,
it.
we have to
You
ask
know?
why. We have to ask why.
Yes, that's our role
It
as
had
human beings.
because it's something to do with the company, profits and all that, that they just don't care to discard, and all the stuff that they make up that's just hallucinations. They could, but they don't because they must think it's better just to say something than nothing. And if you don't know the right answer and somebody's asking you,
The technology
you've
itself is not
course
advanced. The
of
technology
course
is not even near any sense of artificial general intel. It's not. It's not.
well
It's
from
clippy.
your
It's
mouth.
clippy in Word, Microsoft Word times 10,000 or something. That's all it is. Like I just don't. Nothing's impressing me.
Right,
You
but
know,
you, Kurt, you have the luxury of using it or not, in your house or your home office or your business, but in the schools, we don't have a choice, and it's being pushed in,
yeah,
and it's
that
being
is
it's
crazy,
being
man.
pushed in ways like I can show you, from my district, in New York City, there's different districts, like, District 2 is like the lower west side of Manhattan, there's all these districts. So my district is in the Bronx, and the district is sending us these, like, this is a flyer for a competition because it's Respect for All Day that comes every year, and now they're going to have a poster competition. Well, guess what? The flyer was all made by AI. And literally on the box where it says, well, what's the theme of the poster? I have to tell my students, what's the theme? Literally in the box with the theme in it, it's got typos and garbage, and you can't even understand what the theme is. It's
So
like, it's like women's history, like some like nonsensical typo. No human saw it. And then once I showed it to a teacher on my team, she circled all the typos. I didn't realize like the entire the entire goddamn thing is typos. I didn't even notice. So it's just people mailing in garbage. And you know but now I'm going to tell you something which might be a little counterintuitive, is that at the school level, the teachers and the principals and administrators are actually glad because because the Department of Ed, which is a huge bureaucracy, is just so head over heels enamored with AI, and they're just throwing everything right into it. We
sure.
are allowed to. We have permission to submit all of our professional development deliverables in AI. They tell us open AI and use it. So that means we can get back to actually doing real work, which is like, with your hands, like human things, a lot quicker. And it sounds like they're just using AI to say, oh, we're just going to do compliance theater and dispense with all the dumb garbage that we have to do on a daily basis, and just use AI for it. Give it to them, so that no one reads it anyway. They're going to use AI to read it if they read it, and then we can get back to grading papers and preparing our bulletin boards and doing human stuff. So it's not a good reason why, but it is a justification, I guess. If you can like use it for better purposes, I want to say. But yeah, there's a petition going around. You're starting to see a couple of articles. There is not enough, but there is pushback of parents that are very suspicious about how AI is being used in classrooms with our tax dollars, and being used in conjunction with these programs, like these laptop programs that they just sit in front of kids. So, some of this is real healthy skepticism, I would say,
Good.
that we, yeah, that we need. But yeah, these damn programs are worthless, man. I
Yep.
mean, they think it's going to be these cool bells and whistles, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Nah, it's nah. We're
You know that there is an entire school um, that's being run with just kids sitting down in front of AI already, and
sure.
they're trying to get the people that are doing this, like, they're calling it like, new day academy, or some name like
Sure.
that. That's not the name, but it's something like that. They're trying to get massive contracts,
Sure.
with like entire states and entire cities to run this, because they're claiming that the kids in this school are having better outcomes. But if you look at the composition of this school, it is a private school where parents are paying tuition anywhere from $5,000 to $70,000 a year, depending on their income level. And if people are looking at data like that, and thinking that you're actually doing something with AI, you're not. You're just self-selecting all these students who are from families that can afford private school. That's all you're doing, you
Mm,
know. So
yeah.
you know, it's
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 a,
it's
so in other words, just from my side of the camera here, it's just all boring now to talk about. Like that's just my point. Like unless it's just it's a comedic way. I mean, yeah, everything has been flipped over by AI, and now everybody's got to deal with it. And let's just get out from underneath the or get on top of the reality. That's what I'm saying. Like now, just like do some thinking for yourself, like you should. Like just be, just figure out how to use it to the best of your ability, but don't trust it 100% without checking it from going out. I mean, I think
well,
it's
that yeah.
really going to be
Unfortunately, we're only at the beginning. We're only at the
interesting.
beginning
Of course,
of the
of
whole
course.
conversation. And when you argue with people, about whether this can actually work, can students in the classroom, using taxpayer dollars, benefit from AI instead of the old way, which wasn't like human teachers either. It was just like Google Apps, or iReady, or these, like, these other programs. But you have these crypto bros, or these tech bros, who are arguing with you, and they think that because Elon Musk can go to space, that he's can do better than human teachers, and that they're willing to entrust our children. They might not have any children, but they're like, oh, don't worry, because the AI is improving all the time. It's learning from its mistakes, and it's going to correct those, and it's only going to be 2 years where you're going to see that it could do
We'll
everything a
see.
teacher.
We'll see. We'll see.
And I
And
you know
it's
when
just
when they
it's just so exhausting. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
okay,
we're
you
only
got
at
you
the
got a
beginning.
piece of technology. What are you gonna do with it? Let's go. Come on.
I mean,
Because
when
the
they
biggest
when
the biggest reality is, no matter how you bend this fork, it's still human beings being human beings. We're not geniuses on any level. There's nothing exceptionally perfect about us. That's the problem. And so we're the ones not only creating these systems, but we're administrating these systems. And now we're starting to learn how to fact check these systems, which doesn't push the needle forward. That's my whole point. It's just not.
yeah,
It's
I
just
mean,
not.
when they say,
Just
like,
changes the flavor of the conversation and or argument that somebody wants to have, which in my opinion is just an insane amount of just exhaustion.
well, I keep saying we're only at the beginning. We're not even near the middle. When they talk about robots and replacing truck drivers and replacing, you know, airline people and kiosks replacing people. A lot of this is already happening. But when they talk about teachers, they actually think that there's going to be kids in a room with a robot, and and I keep saying, well, you don't know kids. They're going to take that robot apart piece by piece. Is there a human anywhere in here? And and then that brings up the question, like, what about discipline, right? What about if a kid's not doing the right thing? What does the robot do? Because if it's going to pull out like a stun gun, or a cattle prod, we're having, now it brings us to the
It's just going to
question,
give the kid a sedative. It's just going to slowly just give the kid a sedative, and then
right? Are the
they're going to
parents
fall
okay with that?
asleep, fall asleep with a bag of crackers and stuff like
But
that.
you turn the question back on these people and you say, all right, well, do you want AI and robots being cops? Because if you want them to be teachers, and why not cops? Why not soldiers? What are the kind of this? Why not judges? What are the decisions that they actually make? That are consequential. And are we trying to save money, or is this for, like, some kind of like political statement, people are just out gunning for teachers all the time anyway, because they're unionized or whatever. So yeah, we're going to continue to update, like, the controversies around robots. And one thing that I have heard this week, because I was doing a lot of driving, as you're catching up with all this news about the Iraq War and weapons and oil tankers and technology and refineries. So there's a lot of this going on right now because the U.S. entered a new war a couple weeks ago. But the robot thing is, what we're hearing is that there's a lot of countries like China and Russia and all. I'm not Russia, but a lot of countries that are really interested in what Ukraine has developed as far as drone defense systems on the cheap. Because Ukraine, by necessity, who's getting attacked and barraged every day by Russia, has this new kind of like defense force, and it's not humans, it's robots. And they're saying, like, that it's actually very effective for securing a region or a perimeter, because they have these like armed robots now that go around, and they can destroy a tank. They have enough C4 and they just do a suicide bomb, and they just go into a tank and they take out a $30 million tank. So this has been going on for a while, and they've just been getting better and better. And to Ukraine's credit, they're offering this to other countries now, like Lebanon or Iran or whatever, because they have something to offer. Like, hey, you want a couple of tips, on how you can fortify this area, or how you can, protect yourself from these incoming, attacks. And it's working against Russia. So now, ironically, it might be used against the U.S. To defend, if Iran and Lebanon and these other countries are getting shelled by Israel and U.S. missiles and warplanes. Like the U.S. had a fighter jet blown out of the sky, and luckily the one pilot ejected and he was recovered. But they're not talking about other planes and other pilots, and a lot of people are sensing a whole like Vietnam style cover up, which you can see, as the current administration is like trying to sell people on the success of the war. We can see with our own eyes that the videos that are coming out, and the fact that oil prices are. I mean, I just spent 5 tanks of gas going to Florida and back, so I can tell you about oil prices all down the East Coast. They're not good, man. They're not good. I was trying to stay under $4, but I couldn't do it for most of the time in just buying gas, just to drive. And we have a hybrid car, so it's not, it doesn't, it takes a little less gas. They say 50% less gas or something, but um, gas is up, and it's only a matter of time before that affects the price of everything, including comics and shipping and printing and ink and everything. So, you could talk about eggs and bacon, or the staples of just living, but you could also talk about anything that's being transported being elevated costs for the next 3 to 5 years. That's the positions that Wall Street is staking out right now, mostly with oil, but oil has that knock-on effect with everything else. So it's kind of depressing, but yeah, we're living in a time right now in 2026, April 2026, where the outlook is that gas prices are going to be elevated for the next 4 or 5 years, and if not, then Wall Street is wrong. But those are the positions that Wall Street is staking out. So yeah, it's tough when these kind of like personalities on the world stage have big egos and they don't get along, and there's thousands of people on the ground dying because of it. That kind of sucks. And we're living through this again, like a flashback, like a bad dream flashback of what we already lived through, not just Vietnam, but also Iraq. It's the exact same thing. False pretenses of a whole bunch of oil, everyone's fighting over. And I have a guy in my band whose son just shipped off to boot camp. And he arranged for all that before this war was announced. I don't know if people would be signing up, just as readily, because they were promised, like, oh, you're going to learn to be a nuclear physicist or something. Oh, great. Yeah, well, you got to go boot camp first because you're going to be in the Navy. But it's like, oh, okay, I'll join up, sure, sign right here. And then next thing you know, oh, we're at war. Guess who's going to be the first one to go to the front line? Ouch. And so you worry about people, human beings that are caught in the middle of all this shit. And so this informs our comics and our storytelling and everything. I mean, there's some good movies that came out of Vietnam, and like how, like, not just unjust it was, for the soldiers that were thrown into that, and the Vietnamese that were, like, napalmed, let's say, but also just the taxpayer, and just understanding what our elected officials are doing with our money. Are we learning anything? It's like, this isn't really politics, this is really like military. But Kurt, do you, or does anybody think that Iran is just going to surrender and just go quietly? Does anybody think that's going to happen? Like, before we open up, a bombing raid on their, on their military, on their power plants, on everything, and thank God that we didn't, go after their bridges and hospitals and everything. But that's exactly what they're threatening to do, and so it's, it must be really scary if you're over there wondering if this crazy politician is just threatening the stuff to to affect the stock market, or if they're actually going to start raining hellfire onto water, like aquifers, water treatment plants, power plants. I mean, you got kids on incubators, like kids in, like, on machines. You have old people on dialysis machines that have to run 24/7. Otherwise, they're the first ones to die when the electric goes out. And, it's not funny, So I don't know, man. We're in a really weird place in the last couple of weeks that we, didn't really think we were going to be in. Regardless what side you're on politically, this was expressly campaigned against, you know, and yet here we are. So
So yeah, the file you sent me of page 3 is
yeah.
like it's only like 600 kilobytes, and it's a PSD file. So I don't.
No.
Maybe that was, huh?
I sent you a JPEG.
No, that's not what I got. I got a PSD file that is like 600.
Here, I'll export it and save it again. Maybe
Yeah, there's something. I mean, the reason I bring it up is that file. There's something wonky about that file, and so therefore, like, yeah, it's right now. It's Landgraf's Casualties page 3 PSD file, 66.3 kilobytes.
I'm going to.
I don't know.
I want to export it as a JPEG yet again, and I'll make a fresh new JPEG of it. We'll see if that makes a difference. I mean, some of these might change anyway after we go through like a more careful edit. But
yeah. I just, the whole idea is where we're getting to right now. There's a chance that we could basically assemble something, maybe even by the end of next month, to get thrown out to like mix them, just to have like some dummy copies, not even like proofs, just like a dummy copy, just for like page placement. Oh, we didn't think of this, or wow, we got some time. Why don't we try to embellish that? That's really like the large amount of anxiety that I have right now. Anxiousness, not like anxiety, but being anxious about like seeing everything that we've been working on for the Doom Mags End of the World Anthology, coming together. But then, both of us are going to want to put those nuances in there that we just like to have in our comics.
Yep.
I
just did a save as or export as, and I got a brand new version of the page. Yeah, it did. This is so weird the way it creates stuff. So now it's only 15 megs. So I think this is gonna fix the problem.
That's that because the other ones are somewhere around. They're all about 12, 14 megs. So that sounds about right. And especially as a JPEG, that'll pretty a pretty penny. It'll be easy to print with.
Yep. Okay. So this is coming to Kurt, and this is page 3. Try again. And 15 megs, and it should just go direct. Let's see if it asks for mail drop. I didn't get the sound effect of the mail shooting out. Let's see. I should have, but I also didn't get the bounce back window where it didn't get shut out. Let's see if it's sent or not. All sent. Oh, it's sending. It's in the middle.
Sending.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to re-image this this Mac lap I got. I love it. I bought this 11-inch MacBook Air, and I got it super cheap for only like $150. But I've been bogging it down, so it's been a year or two, 3 years maybe since I had it, and it gets slower and slower. So, the best thing to do is just back up everything on it and then re-image it. Oh, you heard that sound?
I heard the swoosh away.
The swoosh.
Here we go. Here we go.
I think we're in business.
Whoa, yeah. Let's look at that. Pretty pictures. Let me download it.
Oh, that was good.
Pretty pictures. Okay. Come on. There you go. Yeah, nice. All right. Looks like I got a full set here now. Definitely of casualties and which is Landgraf, and then with Alex the Duke.
The Duke.
Cool, man. These pages looking good. These were looking good. Yeah, I was very tempted on printing some, but I just felt like it was too early. And like I said, I would rather spend some money and time putting together a just to mix some, you know, dummy copy, just to be able to get that, just to check it out, kind of thing. Just so that we're weeks away. That's I think the most exciting thing is weeks away from
having something in hand.
yeah, and you know, scrutinizing it as we'll do.
Yeah.
So
Getting it ready for IC3 in September.
so you basically, after the town hall meeting for IC3, they sent like the next day your acceptance to Jacksonville IC3.
It was before the meeting, actually.
Oh, it was. Oh, wow, that's super exciting.
Yeah. So, but you know, my car has over 200,000 miles on it. So,
Yeah, you said you're gonna rent.
Yeah, Lisa says it's under $200 for like, you know, a couple of days, but yeah, I'm gonna rent it for. I'm gonna try to get that. So it's a Saturday, right? But you want to get there on the Friday,
Okay.
for sure, and then spend the night. So I'm gonna have to leave on a Thursday to get there on a Friday because it's a 15-hour drive, and um you know, I have a possibility of stopping off my old boss because I'm supposed to like deliver some autographs, a box of valuable autographs for a friend. But they're really close to me. They're only like 3 hours away from here. Like they're actually close to you. They're close to Wilmington, DE. And I never realized that it was less than 3 hours away. I thought you were like 4 or 5 hours away.
Yeah, I'm literally, it's literally a straight line. Once I cross Jersey and make a left on a turnpike, it's a straight line up, and then I get off at exit 11 in the Garden State Parkway, and then, you know, I think yeah, you live like really close to
Well,
James
I'm not there.
Gandolfini, James Gandolfini rest area, right?
Yeah,
I love.
maybe half an hour. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because I think what I saw I was there. I stopped there on the way going out to Massachusetts and visiting friends, but and then of course doing New Haven last year. But
Yeah.
when I put your address in there, it was just like, you know, few more miles up and then a left and then down whatever that is to you. So, but
Well, what used to be like $28 to get a tank of gas is now like $35. So
yeah, yeah,
that it's rough, and you know it's too bad that this is affecting everyday people who have no freaking interest in
yeah,
politics or war or anything.
yeah.
But you know, I was listening to a podcast yesterday that says, you know, we're only at the beginning. This is going to be a very, very long stretch of this. No matter what happens from here, even if you know there's a surrender, unconditional, doesn't matter. We're still, because they've already like debilitated some of the refineries in the Gulf. Number one, and number two, like if you hear from a real energy industry expert, it's very, very educational about how it affects, you know, things that you never really thought. But right now what's happening is seeing what's going on with the short supply of oil because it's not going through the Strait of Hormuz. China has decided that they're going to stop exporting all oil, and they're going to take that off the market, and they're going to you know, just either hoard it or else just, you know, use it domestically, and they're
Sure.
going to create a they're but wait, hold on. It's not that's not just what the
Wait, hold on. There's more
right,
with
because
this.
everybody's talking about it in terms of like, China has a 120-day supply of oil before their market before it starts affecting their markets, right? But right now, China is also buying up uh, oil from the import markets for the export markets in order to pay that high cost. It's about 1.5 times the cost of what it usually is in order to compete with the rest of the world, just to make it more painful. And they're not doing anything with any tanks or guns or military or anything. They're just using their economic power to make this as painful as possible for the U.S. The other thing that's going on is the U.S. production is, U.S. is exporting is producing more oil than ever, but but it's a global market. So now that means the U.S. oil companies, the oil producers, they're not going to do the patriotic thing and keep all the oil in the U.S. They're going to be exporting it because now they're getting $1.50 for every dollar that the U.S. is paying. They're going to get $1.50 on the world stage. And so that means the U.S. is going to be paying $1.50 too, because now we have to import that much more because our patriotic oil companies are exporting all of their production now. So who knew that this was like, so in the weeds with like, global petro economics and everything. But I listened to a couple of experts. There's a great guy on TikTok called Mr. Global who does these wonderful neutral nonpartisan explainers and of how things work. And sometimes it's a real eye opener because you know just because you're in opposition to what's going on right now doesn't mean you're like some left-wing tree hugger environmentalist that wants solar and wind and everything. These are oil people, and they're just explaining just the realities of what's going on, to just kind of like fact check the crap that you're hearing, from politicians who don't know anything about anything. So I learned a lot about that, and then I also listened to a couple of military podcasts too, and it's just ponderous what we just did. It's just very hard to
Yeah,
explain
but
what.
don't you find yourself in a fictionist state of mind after watching like even 30 minutes? Like I've got my go-tos and I listen to the stuff and then it's like, wow, like this is I wonder if I could find an post-apocalyptic movie that meets some of this.
Criteria.
Well, like once again, we're Turbo Pit Fighter is based on George Miller's Mad Max, and that the apocalypse is less than 1 minute long. In the explainer part of it, but the devastation that occurs because of said apocalypse, just the big air quotes being thrown up, and gasoline being the resource that is in such
Short supply.
vital necessity that I keep operating gas guzzling semis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's super like the thing that I have the most concern for right now is we're not designed to take on all of this information. It's not healthy. It's not there's nothing you're going to be doing as a human being that's going to solve anything from your chair watching hours and hours worth of TikTok or videos and stuff. You're actually going to do more of a detriment unless I know you do, but I hope you do more of this as I do, is the conversion, the fiction conversion situation, like, and that's even, I think, a huge challenge. One of the things I had an idea for, I wrote it in my little pad that I keep next to me, but so my wife and I, we love British or UK, Australia, New Zealand crime mystery shows. But we got dragged over to Amazon to watch Guy Ritchie's Sherlock, which was fucking amazing. But but the thing was is that you get, unless you're going to pay another $2.99, you're going to get these minute plus ad cycles that come through and stuff. But and I was backing. I was either backing out or backing. I think I was backing out, and of Amazon. And as I was backing out, I was looking for something, and then I saw that the Melania Trump documentary is now available for free, quote unquote, on Amazon Prime. And I just stopped and I grabbed my piece of paper, and it wasn't anything in depth. It was just like, the suggestion is this. Maybe not right now, but it would be interesting for you and I to watch that documentary to see how we can kind of bring that back into the D. Huberton type of like facade of this this trillionaire family. But I'm getting really, really interested in seeing that documentary for the fictitious value that it would have on grounding said, family in the aspects of these different characters, because the Hubertons are not just a name that blankets Turbo's world, or the end of the world timeline as it is, but there are these characters that have been invented and are being developed. The Duke that's going to be in this End of the World Anthology, Doom Magazine's #1. It's really exciting to have that element. I kind of got taken back to Alex Turbin's, the three of us having conversation and his questioning about like, well, what if so and so did D. Huberton, blah, 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 this, or then the blah, 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 this and stuff, and I know you enjoy that probably even more than I do, for that basis story. But I think I just like to kind of stick that bug in your ear, and maybe like we have an episode where the week prior we watched it.
A watch party? You want to do a Melania watch party?
But it's like I know it sounds crazy, but the way my brain works.
Well,
if it gets stressed by things, it starts inventing fantastical things or fantastical versions for me to navigate out of, depression or just extreme amounts of anxiety and stuff like that. So then, it takes me there. But, I'm in partnership with you in making this Turbo Pit Fighter on a 3-hour long podcast every week. And, the world's burning down around us. But then at the same time, isn't it fun? Like, isn't this like a fun kind of like time to like be cherry picking out this stuff that is so closely within reach of watching? You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
so you bring up
it's better than AI.
Well, yeah, you're bringing up some great themes, because one of the things that's going incredibly viral right now are these Iranian Lego animations that are all AI, that are like showing Trump getting defeated and everything, and they're just like, they're saying he's a pedophile. They're showing him with little girls, and they're just kind of visualizing. But guess what? People are loving those.
Yes.
And it's war propaganda where we're actually entertained. We are being greatly entertained because they have these rapper voices and these really interesting lyrics, and it's probably all AI. They're putting in some prompts and everything, but it sounds like Eminem, and it sounds like, these real good rappers, and they're presenting this, alternative reality where, Trump is losing and everything's going bad, but it's really, really entertaining. And even people that are, for, against Iran, and even people that are for this war are entertained by it, because it's going into the kind of conversation. Now, if I can just say, the Melania movie is a very interesting thing. People might think that, this is like some actual movie that was made because people are actually interested in a first lady, which we have never really seen, like, something like that. Oh, a theatrical release of a documentary of a sitting first lady. It just, no. Now, maybe a book or something, or a TV special, but um, what this is money laundering. So Jeff Bezos um, paid Melania Trump something like, what was it, $45 million, or was it $145 million? Just like
I have no
some
idea.
some incredible amount for her participation in making this documentary. And it goes without saying that it's, a complete, like, her version of reality, and God knows what's in there, if there's any resemblance, to the real story. But also we find out that one of the producers is somebody that's prominently mentioned in the Epstein files himself, as one of these, like, model scouts or whatever. Real suspicious stuff. And the fact that, they're not only, you're not mentioning any of that, but they're giving this guy the job. Like, I didn't realize how much, this happens in movie studios. But when they're making, like, a movie like Die Hard, 3 or something, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that are going from a movie studio and all these investors to these, to these directors and producers and everything, and filmmakers, that are now able to spread that money around. And they can hire their friends for $100,000, $200,000, like, a week or whatever, like these incredible sums of money. Not to mention the actors, who get like $10 million a film. And I didn't realize how political it was until you see some of the, names that you hear in politics are investors in these movies, right? And people might know about, like, Weinstein, and he was, in the Me Too thing and everything, because he was in the movie business. But this also goes for some of the people that are in the cabinet now, that were investors, and some of the people that were in the cabinet the first go around, that are investors in these movies. And you see how much of this is really, like, not money laundering, but glad handing, within the industry, to say, all right, we're going to green light this from this studio because it's going to benefit this guy. So what we're looking at with Melania is, a propaganda film that was a vehicle for Jeff Bezos to get in the good graces of the current administration. Everybody knows that, you don't pay the subject of a documentary like $100 million or $40 million. That's not a thing, like, but not only is that going on, but you're also getting the version of events, straight from the people that are named in the goddamn, accusations about, uh, finding young girls from other countries, bringing them over, grooming them, introducing them to, fabulously wealthy guys. Sometimes they're just a fling. Sometimes they get married. And in the case of Melania, you also might have seen this week. People might have also seen this week, unprompted, she goes out and does this press conference explaining that she had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein and no involvement, and she didn't see anything, she didn't do anything. And then everyone's like, well, why is she doing that? Nobody was talking about her. Like, she was just mentioned in passing, and she wasn't really being discussed as somebody who, like, let's say, like, directed other girls to Jeffrey Epstein or whatever. Well, about 2 days after that, we hear that her former friend, who married the guy that introduced Melania to Donald, is now going public and talking about all the stuff that she witnessed, and Mia is implicated. So it turns out that was a preemptive strike. And Melania is really interesting nowadays because they're using her more. They're trotting her out with these robots, and they're saying that everybody in the future is going to buy a robot to educate their children and not send them to school. I mean, she's a very useful tool for things like that to start
Of course
discussions.
she is.
And
She's the first goddamn lady, man. Come on, get on board.
yeah, but she's also something like, Trump really,
Better than
what Trump
selling Tupperware.
what Trump really wants to use is his daughter Ivanka, right? Because she's good looking and smart, and she speaks well. And so every time that they're trotting out Melania, they have to pay her production company. And this was going on during the campaign. I thought it was insane, but when she would make an appearance on the campaign trail at one of these rallies, they were few and far between. And then you find out that there's a structure for her production company to get paid millions of dollars, and also to get a makeup guy and to get a jet and to get red M&Ms and all this other all these other kind of like things that are going on, because she is a part of the entertainment.
It's all entertainment, Jake. It's all entertainment.
Well, it's all
That's what
entertainment,
our
so people
country
start
is
buying.
founded on. It's what it's been developed as. It's just the saddest state of affairs. But also, every other country in the world is trying to mimic us.
Well, every other country, not, I don't know about that. There's other countries that are prosecuting people in the Epstein files, and
Yeah,
not necessarily for
I'm not talking about that.
trafficking or
I'm
whatever,
talking
but
about I'm talking about how all of this is perpetuated. Like I've said before, and I say it again and again and again. Everything I hear goes over into a very small room in my head, and it's titled "Investigate Further If You Choose, Mr. Bruegel." That's
yeah.
I just everything that's just like everything you say. None of it seeps in as like, oh shit, I didn't know that. That's fucked up. It never happens to me because if anything does tinker me, twinkle star like in my head, it's like, okay, well, let me follow that to see what I can get fictitiously out of it. But the thing that I'm trying to get across, and I'm doing my best to come in terms with, is like, you can't beat sitting watching a YouTube channel full of news clips, which I do a lot of times at night, and I mix it up with lions hunting down giraffes and bison and all this kind of stuff, and and some comedians. I have this, like I said, it's one dedicated channel just for just to sit in the armchair and just kind of look at it, but
you're doom scrolling. Yeah, you're just doom scrolling.
well, yeah, but at the same point, it's like I usually back out after about 45 minutes if nothing's clicking for me in
45 minutes is a long time, man.
No, I know, no. I get that, but I'm just saying, but I have this little, I get these 200-page little pads, they're 3x5, spiral bound, and then sometimes things will just start hitting me. I'm like, wow, man, that's great. Because one of my things is, I teeter on post-apocalyptic, but I'm more interested in science fiction, alien, cosmic doom and horror level, on top of barbarian sword and sorcery stuff. That's always my equation. I found a guy just recently breaking down and really well cosmic horror movies, everything from Annihilation to the color of the shape of the color, just and the way he's doing it is he's doing it in this like, I want to figure this out. You know what I mean? I think he's either a writer or a comic book or writer or artist or something. Maybe movies. I can't remember, but these are like, for me, productive. I always want to be productive, but I admit openly, I just want to be entertained. And it might be grossly offending to people to be like, dude, all this shit's happening and these people are being tortured. Yeah, I get it. But there's only so much that I can do physically in order to help, other than like create some kind of like escapism, to go forward on it. But I don't carry any kind of like protesting or swinging forward at and stuff, and then wanting to hold some silly debate on, because this is my other biggest problem with trying to hold any kind of conversation openly about anything happening, quote unquote, globally in the world of disaster, is it changes fucking every minute, if not every hour. And that's an excruciating amount of time to try to keep mapping where to move to next in position of preparedness to what.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it seems to me just like completely exhausting. Might not be. Like, you might get a charge out of sitting there and trying to cross, pull red line over to one place, in an image board type of thing. My thing is like I said, it's the whole, like the entertainment value of said collapse as we're being fed, of the world. But I am old enough to have experienced, when I turned 18, that was 1987. And then I think by 93 we're in Iraq. No. I'm sorry. I was in Japan when that shit went. Yeah, it was 91.
The first time.
Yeah. And so, like, I've watched the theater of our political war machine going on and on, but like, once again, that was all completely outside of having internet or some phone that just constantly pings you and shows you just how horrible everything is going on in the world. But it's all repeatable. All this shit is so repeatable. So if it's surprising to anybody over the age of like 50, I would be concerned, because what the hell have you been doing for the last 30 years? Like, why haven't you been paying attention to what's been going on? But I don't think that's what is going on. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, what you're talking about is, Kurt trying to protect his well-being from
my emotional state. It's my emotional state that I take care of. I don't depend on anybody. I don't depend on anybody to do that, other than like, family, wife, friends and stuff, to that extent and everything.
Yeah. So what, and you're wise to do that, because a lot of people, they just follow the bouncing ball.
Yep.
And they don't realize, that it's an some people are using the term attention economy. We're in an attention economy. And then you bring us back to, like, the early 90s. It was the same thing, except instead of staring at our screen in our palm, we were staring at CNN or these new, TBS or whatever the new 24-hour, station was. And you was like, oh God, did you see what happened? No, you got to tune in. Right. And, the space shuttle blew up or whatever it was this week, and, the thing that's different now is that, a charismatic, leader has come along who figured this out. And, I post this a lot when I see friends of mine that are going on and on about politics every single day in their timeline, every single day. Did you see what he did now? Did you see what he did now? And I'm like, do you realize that you are a disinformation mule for exactly the same person that you're criticizing? And that they're counting on you to say that he's wrong and he's terrible, call him every name in the book. But at the same time, you're carrying his words to 10 more people or
Yep.
100 more people.
Yep.
So, so he's figured that out.
Yeah.
And, maybe on the left, or maybe on the middle or whoever, other people are figuring it out too, because what are we seeing now? We're seeing the disappearance of news, of hard news. It's going away. Your local paper is not a thing anymore, you
Ugh.
know,
Yeah.
and you're lucky if you can get reporting on the latest campaign, like who am I literally voting for in the school board race, right? Like you're lucky if you get anything like that in your hometown nowadays. So, what everybody has realized, and this is not just professionals, this is just like people in their houses, is that, oh, I can make a podcast too.
Yeah.
And I can comment on this just like Jake Tapper on CNN, and my views are just about as good as his because he's just a bobblehead anyway. Let me get my buddy on with me from down the street, and instead of just talking about this stuff over a beer, we're going to put this online. And some of these people have just like small audiences, and it's just like, all right, there's a million of these podcasts, and some of these people are, elevate to the level of a Joe Rogan or, the latest guy is this guy named Hassan Piker, and, he's more left leaning, but, he said a couple of things that are quote unquote anti-Semitic, and now all of a sudden it only helps him, right? He's
Right.
getting
That's
rewarded.
yes.
He's getting rewarded
Yep.
for saying things that are borderline anti-Semitic, and so a couple of things he's apologized for, a couple of things he isn't, but now he's getting he's like the fifth most streamed guy. I mean, I just learned his name 2 weeks ago, a week ago. Like, I never knew who we're talking about, but sure enough, it's a tried and true formula that the more you can say that's outrageous, bombastic, offensive, and then you just apologize later, but now you got this huge audience, right? So that's what we've been subject to, and that's what the current occupant has figured out, is that you can say these things. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. In fact, it's better if it's not true,
Yeah.
because now more people are going to fact check it and they're going to spread it around like disinformation mule,
Yep.
whether they mean to or not, to carry your message far and wide, even at the same time that they're saying it's wrong. It doesn't matter. They're talking about you and they're spreading your message, whatever it is, like, we're going to build a wall or whatever it is today, tomorrow, and, and the more outrageous it gets with pedophiles and Russia and Ukraine, the more like important it gets, like the more like gravity it has. But we're really just looking at a talk show guy or a reality show guy, and at the end of it.
Yep.
So we do need to try to put it in a place, in our minds. Otherwise, we're falling for it just as bad as CNN fell for it, just as bad as MSNBC. All those places that claim to be against him, all falling for it every single day, over and over, like not learning anything. So I just want to say, we are going to be putting that. We are going to be like talking about like what is this going to be like in 100 years from now when we learn all these lessons, right? And like just because something's there doesn't mean it's worth looking at. Like how are algorithms going to treat this? And the one thing that we didn't figure on when we first started writing Turbo Pit Fighter, kind of like an homage to Road Warrior,
Yeah.
but is like how AI changes everything, and like we have like our robots are like, yes, recognition, bot, the affirmative, action completed, and in reality now AI has crept up on us, and it's like, hey, how you doing, Kurt? How can I help you today? That's really what it is. And it's the voice of whoever. You can make it an Australian voice, you can make it an English voice, like whatever you want to do. So it's funny when we look at robotics and in sci-fi. maybe Alien it came the closest. They're humans that look like everybody else. They just have,
Yeah,
you know,
I'll never forget when Ash was revealed as a robot, how much confusion for days went on in my life. Because I was like, what? I saw it on VHS 2 years maybe after it was released. So it'd have been like 81, two. So it was like 12 years old or something like that. And a friend of mine came over to the house. We had it at school. And then we were planning on going to my house that day. And, luckily for my mom, she was a total like, oh, leave them alone, let them watch their television, blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
And I just remember like I just walked out into my backyard and wandered around for like, I was just in a daze. But that daze, as I used the word anxiety or being made anxious, was like, that discovery of like being brought into an escapist place, not to mention how horrifying Alien is, like as a movie, just the
Well, the
point
first one
blank horror about it, like the terror that they're putting you into, every minute in the confined space of a spaceship. It's like The Thing was another movie this guy broke down as a cosmic horror, and there's just something to be said about being terrified in a way that causes you really to think. Like your brain just starts firing, and just the synapse is just like, either you're going to be like, oh, if I was in, and then that's what my friends did. I'm sure you did, when you saw something that fact, oh, I would have never gone in that room. I would have never pulled that level. I wouldn't have touched that thing. You were like, you're playing all this rationale stuff, but like that's like some pure escapism. Oh, the other thing too on my YouTube
Well,
channel.
hold on before you go to the next one. Yeah. So one thing about storytelling and pacing and tension and everything, it's like they don't show the alien for the first 45 minutes.
Jaws. It's like fucking Jaws.
Yeah.
Jaws
Well, you also got Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes didn't show an ape until 45 minutes, right? So less is more. But now, now that they're on like, sequel number 7 or 8 or 9, it's like the first shot, so it kind of,
check this cool ape out.
Yeah, you can't keep that going. But those are some classic movies that like got in deep, so that you really, really have the audience like hanging on every word, hanging on the edge of their seat, and then it really just delivered. It did a great job. But
the thing that happened last night, like watching, like I said, you I agree with you. It's like doom. You're just doom scrolling, and letting YouTube kind of keep suggesting stuff, because you engage the stuff that's presented to you immediately on your timeline. But I ended up getting these Arya killing everybody from Game of Thrones clips.
Oh, I saw that last night too.
I know. I'm like, what is going on here? And they were not like, one was put out by HBO like 2 years ago or something like that. But like that was another moment. Like after I watched like a dozen of these like 5-minute clips of, or less than, her killing so and so, and then the no-face man and everything, Haggard, Jakar Haggard, and I just remember like sitting there going like, whoa, I think I'm going to have to go back and watch all of them. But it also was so synonymous with like regime changes and global politics from Westeros, and like across the river, you're like, whoa, like.
Well, what happens, I think what happens with these owners of this IP is that they cross a threshold, like, oh yeah, it's been 5 years, it's been 7 years, it's been 10 years. Let's start like rehashing this. And social media, it's like, all right, let's put some clips on social media. We'll make some fake accounts. We'll hire some, some people, and oh yeah, like we got to get
Remember
another
that?
generation of it. So you're gonna get like people like my daughter who has watched this like my older daughter. Well, she's watched Game of Thrones. She could tell you every name. She could do like trivia night on this all day long. And so you get people like her that are watching and rewatching, and then you might get some people that have never seen it before and get hooked, and it's just sitting there on demand to watch for anybody that gets interested. And
Fascinating.
why wouldn't they want to to seed that online, get people
Crazy.
talking? So I wonder how much of that is organic, versus manipulated. but
Nah.
but either way, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a decent product. I don't begrudge anybody going out and doing promotion. I think
Yeah.
everybody that we meet is going to want to try to promote their stuff. The only question is like how underhand are they about it, about like hiding the fact like this is a bot or this is a manufactured campaign and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, we're
whatever.
coming around. We're coming around. We got another 8 minutes till we hit one and everything like that. I'm actually heading into the last page of just like laying in darks and lights and stuff. But yeah, I am. I'm super excited about exactly what is coming up for both of us in the way it shows. So you are heading to, we're going to start maybe getting some graphics or some printouts and everything so we can kind of show off. And because I really want to get people jazzed up to coming out and meeting us, but not only us at these events if they're near them, but like everybody else, especially for the IC3. I'm also going to be at SBX September 12th and 13th, which is 2 weeks prior to IC3 in Providence, which is just the 28th. But on the other side, things are, after that town hall meeting, which was pretty much like the last one that Kezra and from Comic Art Fan and Matt Sardo, who's the original founder and creator of IC3 and the creator Comic Con, was pretty damn jazzed up for just being kind of like notified, about CAF's plans. I mean, Kazra said towards the end, they're planning next year 12 Indie Creator Con events country wise. And if I can get to 3 of them next year, I would be very, very happy with that. I think that would be super cool. And especially when they're like up, like I'm hoping because Jamie Jones is one of the founders of IC3 with Matt Sardo, and he lives in Philadelphia, that I get an IC3 in Philadelphia. If I got an IC3 in Philadelphia, and then you and I have got to drive down to Jacksonville, and then you and I got to meet in Providence for each year, I think that would be a sweet fucking deal. As an indie creator, building a a community, as not only we're doing, you and I with Turbo, but my community over at cromthebarbarian.com.
Yeah, it's gonna be good to get out of the get away from the drawing table and meet actual breathing people. And it's so exciting for me to meet other people because maybe there's some collaborators out there that are looking for some scripts, so they can take on their next project. But we did go through this whole kind of like learning process in putting together our anthology that is going to inform our next anthology going forward. I'm sure a lot, of things that we're not going to do the same or do differently. But we already do have 2 sequences. We have to figure out how to get that kung fu thing, into print. But
I'm glad you brought that up. I would love for you to carve out a chunk of time. I made this suggestion before, but I want to push it. Is go ahead and tile scan the pages and then just send them to me and I'll put them together. Okay, so all you have to do is stand there at the scanner and just keep because they're so large, you're just going to scan each of the 4 corners. That's how I would, right? You tile scan that way, don't you, Jay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
those are on some pretty big boards.
right, and so and then I'll graft them together, because then once again, I have not physically seen those pages. So until I have physical acknowledgement of those pages, that I can start sending you like my thoughts, or at least in open discussion as we do on meeting every Sunday. It's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, that what
Well,
we're talking about,
I gave
we
you
want to
the
see
phone.
them for the next in the next and Doom Magazine anthology.
Yeah, and we are going to have to figure out. I mean, there is some sci-fi to it, but we are going to have to figure out how to build that into the Turbo timeline and the end of the
Mm-hmm.
world timeline. I thought about, well, we have a character, Wee Lou, maybe it could be her dad or something in a prequel for that. But we'll figure it out. I mean, you gotta present what's on the page, number one, and then you gotta figure out how to.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff, that reverse engineering type of thing, where you already have it, in hand, the final pages, and then you get to write, something. My first 4 pages for Crom and Dravanis with Ken Landgraf, he sent me when he did the first Crom pinup for the 2024. He sent me these. There was like a guy wanted to do a Dungeons and Dragons kind of like comic, and it was called Dungeon, and he paid Ken to do 2 pages, and Ken sent me these 2 like really crappy JPEGs. And so I bantered back and forth with him, and he was like, "Oh, I can't remember who it was. Maybe if you look up this." And so we kept going on and on. And then when it came time that I wanted to commission him for a Crom story, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna kind of lay out the next 2 pages, just like action wise, like not worry about any kind of like narration or dialogue. And I sent it to Ken, and then Ken came back, but I had to write a story then. You know what I mean? Like I had to come up, like even the 2 characters' names. I mean, Dravanis, I didn't even have. He was just a magician. That's all. That's what I told a bald-headed magician based on the pages that he had sent me, that he was working. He had worked out for these 2 guys and stuff. And now I'm like heading into the next 6 pages of the story. Like I have 6 pages I've already written, so I have 10, but I'm already getting excited about the next 6 and stuff. But I'm even thinking of doing the next 6 with him, less dialogue and narration and more like flat, like Crom, damsel, wizard, and they're in a labyrinth, so it's kind of like a Theseus kind of like maze and the Minotaur type of thing and stuff. So with like cyborgs and the such. But yeah, so and then just write, once I get those 6 pages, write what is quote unquote going on there. But I like that kind of stuff. I enjoy it.
Yeah. So yeah, you always like a challenge and like solving a puzzle. We can talk about that. Over the years, how many times has a comic publisher given an artist a script and gotten back something that wasn't exactly what the writer was expecting?
Yeah.
Well, that happens a lot. And then that's where the editor makes their money. Well, all right, are we going to send this back to have it redone, or are we just going to shoehorn it, into something now that makes sense? I mean, when you talk about Stanley and Jack Kirby, you're talking about a process that was so loosey goosey on the front end,
right,
that it was just like, imagine Stanley's delight. Oh, look, here's an entire comic book, the Avengers #6 or X-Men #5 or whatever, and there's no word balloons anywhere, and the whatever happened in the initial planning meeting, it's over. Now you're just dealing with what you're getting back on the back end. So now his job is to create the dialogue and then maybe a little bit of narration panels that's going to make it all make sense.
Yeah.
And what a fun task that must have
Hell
been,
yeah. Hell yeah.
because you can tell by the dialogue he was just making puns and alliteration and smart cracks and wisecracks and everything, and he was just having
Ball.
he was looking at the clock, number one,
Yeah.
and number two, he was just like you know purposely letting the camp fly, letting it be corny, letting it be melodramatic, letting it be, I mean, everybody knows what those classic comics are all about. So,
Yeah.
that was the interesting thing about the Marvel method. And we could also talk, Kurt, about, cinema, because same thing, with a screenplay, and then, it turns into a full script. And then you're going out on location with the director and a whole bunch of diva actors and actresses, and you get back what you get back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
reshoots
Especially
are
when it was shot as film, developed film.
right, and reshoots are a really big deal.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't happen, but they're expensive, and and you have to go back and do reshoots. And I think typically there's a little bit of reshooting, but they want to minimize that. So how do you then take your editing tools of sequencing, overdubs, sound effects, and nowadays CGI just means like, oh well, forget it. We're not reshooting anything. We're just going to show Tom Cruise, and we'll just have him walking down the street, So it's a problem. It's basically just problem solving, and
Yeah. Beautiful stuff, man.
comics do it just like movies do it, just like
Just like the
art.
birds do it, just like the bees do it.
Right. And so
We all do it.
if people are scratching their heads, well, what Kurt and I are talking about, we have teased this before, but we bought some original art from an unknown artist at an auction of a guy from a music producer, a punk music, a musician and DJ and record producer, a guy that had a whole career playing in bands and everything, going on tour, and he had a collection of zines and in this case some comic art that Kurt and I picked up, and we have to try and make sense of it because it's kind of like a master of kung fu ish sequence of 10 pages, some color, some black and white, that we have to try and make it some kind of sensible story for our next Do Magazine #2. And when we put it out, we're of course going to ask the question: does anybody know who this artist is? Are they still around? Are they alive? Can we can we credit their name? And
that was actually how you and I kind of like, because we were sitting on the fence because we didn't have much time, but when you gave me the opportunity to join you on it, Baiting Buzz. But I do remember part of that conversation towards the end was just like, well, what if we just got it and then we dealt with it and then we published it and then we wrote something saying, hey, look, if you're the creator, like, contact us because we want you involved, that type of thing. It just wasn't like, oh, this is now ours, now we're going to be, nope. It excites me because there's a ton of stuff that's just sitting out there, which I think is a god awful shame.
I got some new information, Kurt, and for anybody that's interested, the estate was a musician, a guitar player, and later in life a DJ, but also an incredible podcaster of this great garage punk podcast called Intoxica Radio, and you can still go online and hear the episodes. I recommended it actually to Chris Anderson because we were talking music, and I was like, yeah, man, I got some great tips for you for like podcasts for because he said he was into some punk and real early garage stuff and the whole history of it. So Howie Pyro dies, and he had this collection, and it ends up in this auction house. And so what I found out a little more recently is somebody that knew Howie really well was scratching her head because she said the stuff that appeared in the auction is only a fraction of his collection. What
Wow.
happened to everything?
Wow.
And there's a little bit of a question mark between, his whoever his loved ones were that was handling his estate and the auction house and whoever else in between. That a lot of that stuff, where is whereabouts unknown now, and it sounds like some of the better stuff, especially in terms of rare records, acetates, maybe like one of a kind performances, cassettes, like all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of, and there might have even been master tapes for the various, bands that he was in, especially over the years. Who knows? But somebody that knew Howie really well told a friend of mine that they're very curious what happened to the better stuff in his collection, because this was only a small portion of it that ended up coming to market. And I still have. I mean, I'm regretting so much. There was a Kirby piece in there that sold for $900 that I think is probably worth about 3,000.
No,
I don't
easy.
know.
Easy.
But that's what happens when you're in these little sales, and like, it doesn't get like mainstream attention.
Right.
I On my way home, I just stopped off near you, not too far from Wilmington, Delaware. I stopped off to pick up my friend's Keith Haring. He just bought a Keith Haring original piece for thousands and thousands of dollars. It's in my garage. Yep. But there's all this stuff that comes up for sale, and if you're in the right place at the right time, you could pick it up cheap and then bring it to another venue and sell it for a lot more. So that happens every single day in collectibles markets.
All right. Well, let's let these people get back to reading comic books, making if they will. What a wonderful, fantastic 3 hour plus day with Jake. I want to thank everybody that hung out and came by. If you're on the replay, if you have questions, go ahead and make them or comments down below. Bat Merc, Daryl Grant, Mystery
Yeah,
Eyes
let's
Studio,
read them out.
99, Mellow. We had a lot of hanging out, so hopefully you got some pages done as well. And
I'm gonna just read these comments before we go. Bat
yeah,
Merrick said, yeah. So we said hi to some people. Mello says your work on these Pit Fighter pages is inspired. Batmerk says, Ale chat, I'm catching up on the Crom updates. I'm honored you put Hellwar in there and a Crom pinup. So rad. J Toon says, morning. Mastery Eye Studio checking in. Batmerk says, love Master Kung Fu for the choreography. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Paul Galesi. Bunch of awesome barbarian books you got, Jake. I'm jelly. Got a lot of Conans. The local comic store by me never have the dope dollar bin books. They're all from the 2000s. I know. Well, that's why I go to comic stores when I'm traveling, because if you get out of these big cities, you can get some bargoons. The strange Daryl recognized the stranger. Good call. I remember he was on the cover of some Avengers, giant size Avengers. Batmerk says gas is $7 here in LA.
That's
bonkers. $7, Kurt.
That's bonkers.
Printing has almost.
I'm moving. That's I'm moving initiative right there for me.
Yeah, move. It doesn't happen overnight, but let's see. Batmerk also says printing has almost doubled this month at some printers.
Jeez.
That doesn't bode well for us.
Yeah, we'll
oil and war machines are in full effect. Mixem went up in prices too.
Oh boy.
And so that's not just the shipping, right? Because they're getting their paper at a higher price now and their ink at a higher price.
Yeah.
And machines, parts, all that. That Tim Alberino podcast about the Afghanistan giant was awesome. Well, that's a new one on me, but folks can look into that. Tim Alberino talking about Afghanistan giant. I think they must mean, I don't know anything
Kandahar,
on
the
what's that.
Kandahar giant. Kandahar.
Maybe, yeah, maybe something to do with unleashing the power of Afghanistan, because they have resisted the Russians, the Americans. They call it the graveyard of empires. There's a lot of craggy terrain where it's really hard to, take over the country. But they're currently ruled by the Taliban, who is exactly who was ruling it when we invaded in the first place, and we handed it back over to them after spending about 19 years spinning our wheels. So that's U.S. empire for you. You know, we our regime changed before theirs did, and they just waited us out. So yeah, we're in that again. And thanks for the comments, everybody.
Yeah.
Batmerk, Daryl, Mastery I, J Tunes, Mellow, AOTRT. Check back with us next week. We're gonna be live drawing again, and I think Mystery Eye Studio is a name I don't recognize. Guys, you can feel free to plug what you're working on. You can be like, "Hi, good morning. I'm just drawing my, series, blah blah blah," and we'll be happy to mention it on the air. We love, when other creators are doing their thing on Sundays and listening to us. It really helpful to know that somebody is listening. So, Kurt, do you want me to take us out, or did you want to
Please.
talk about Crom for a second?
Oh, well, everything's going very well. Up to 12 copies of the original 10 that I wanted to sell of the Crom Anthology
You got to
mock-up.
bear down on the mic. Bear down on the mic a little.
The 12 copies have been sold for the mock-up for Crom 2. I started doing live inking over at cromthebarbarian.com YouTube channel. Yeah, I really had a great time chatting with fellow indie creator artist Trent. He's actually going to send me a copy of his one of his recent ash cans, so I'm really excited to get that and also share it. But things are trudging along. But other than that, yeah, man, can't wait for the next Sunday. More Toy Bow.
Right, man. We're going. Yeah, and I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be doing my haul, my Florida and Virginia and North Carolina haul for weeks, probably. Yeah, probably like 4 weeks. If I show like 20 comics, a week, so that'll be helping out our comics that influence tab, and that'll also bring up some interesting discussions. Like, as I'm doing this, this is probably in lieu of me like looking through these comics. I'm just commenting on them, and then I might actually, look back on a replay in the future, and remind myself, there's a lot of great stuff that we should all be stealing, copying, emulating, honoring, and when we're making comics, because we're looking at stuff from the 70s, sometimes the 80s, not too much 90s, but yeah, I really think that we should carry on a lot of the traditions of comic makers of the 70s. I mean, even the 60s, and that's why we do those flip throughs. So look out for another one next week, and the week after, and the week after, and these are all dollar comics, except I am going to get at one point into some sub $5 comics that I bought, that I paid just a little bit more for, but that'll be an episode coming up soon too. If you're also interested in our creator interviews, we just did one recently with a horror creator, and that's posted. It was Tommy's, what is it, Tommy's Meat House or something?
It's just Tommy's, but the meat market was like a sub. It's like a
Tommy. And I see that on my feed whenever I'm pulling up YouTube. So we're doing creator interviews all the time too. Look out for those. I think it's going to get a little exciting as we're finishing up Do Magazine #1, and going to be turning our attention back to drawing and writing Turbo Pitfire comics exclusively. Can't wait to get back to that and stay.
So I'll be reaching out this week to see if I can get Tom Cellini, who's been on twice before. He owns a comic book shop, but he's also the creator of Lost Landers. He's got like some amazing updates. And then of course you were able to catch up and get a copy of Assignon by Corinne Halbert. So I'm going to also reach out to her and try to get her for the following Sunday to jump in, around 11:30,
Yeah.
Do our indie creator exchange. But this will be a great update with Tom Cellini. So.
Yeah, and speaking of retailers, I want to shout out to Jesse James down in Florida. It's D-Land, Florida, I believe. And he has a shop called Jesse James Comics. And I spent a good like 2 or 3 hours there flipping through his cheap books. We got to talking. I probably bought more than $50 worth of stuff off him. So he has a podcast and he does stuff too. And it sounded really interesting, except I had to get out of there. So I got his contact info. And folks, if you're in D-Land, Florida area, that's close to like Daytona, Orlando, that kind of region, check in with Jesse James Comics.
Cool.
All right, folks. If you're interested in our other flip through archives, go to our tab on our YouTube landing page. We already spoke about our Indie Creator Exchange, and we will be right back here next Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern, with pencils and pens and inks in hand, ready to entertain you. I'll talk about our stacks. We'll talk about our hauls. We'll talk about robots, everything under the sun. So we'll see you back next week on Sunday, and come join us and check in, in the chat, be a part of the fun. See y'all soon.
See you next Sunday, Jake.
All right, pal.